All right, welcome. I call the Select Board meeting for June 17th, 2025 to order. The meeting of the Hopkinton Select Board is being held both in person and remotely using the video conference platform Zoom. All members participating in the meeting are present in the meeting room. The public has the option of attending in person here at Town Hall or via Zoom using the link posted at today's meeting agenda. The meeting is being recorded. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Next, we will move to public forum. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak at public forum, and please start by stating your name and address. Anyone like to get started? Mr. Wisemantle, first hand up.
Good evening. Ken Wisemantle, 145 Ash Street. I'd like to thank HCAM for hosting my presentation on water needs. It's still available on HCAM YouTube. This is the second presentation in my series on water issues facing Hopkinton. The third in the series has been recorded. This focuses on the interbasin transfer process. It will be aired near the end of June. I've already started on the fourth presentation of this series, which will be on the alternatives to connection to the MWRA. Last Thursday, the Water Resources Commission had an in-person meeting, and I invited Paul Gallagher, the Water Sewer Advisory Board Chair, to come with me to meet the other commissioners and the commission staff. I didn't know at the time that Hopkinton had just sent a letter asking that the Water Resource Commission staff update Hopkinton's water needs forecast. Paul got an earful on Hopkinton's long history of unaccountable water above the standard of 10% and the difficulty of doing a water needs analysis with such high unaccountable for water percentage. He was asked what was Hopkinton's program for meter replacement, A36 water audits, and leak detection. As I've been saying for months, the Water Resources Commission is serious about water conservation efforts as measured by unaccountable water. Hopkinton will have to make some serious progress in unaccountable water before an interbasin transfer will be approved by the Commission. Finding leaks or having accurate meters could really reduce the need for future rate increases. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sam Doknovich, 8 Erica Drive. Good evening. I'm speaking today in support of having a Horribles parade this year and asking for the Select Board to approve the parade permit application so that the town liability insurance would cover the parade and that the police detail rate would be at the town rate. As you know, there was no town funding for the revival of the Horribles parade last year. The Horribles Parade has been a long-standing tradition in town. It's an event meant to bring the town together, let people express their opinions, and have some fun doing it. Last year's return of the Horrible Parade was well received with many positive comments by most of the attendees and town people that I know. There was no hate speech, no names on floats, no water balloons, and no home water hoses soaking the crowd. The parade was safely conducted and was very civil. I think it's important to model behavior that shows that different opinions are welcome and that people from all political parties and with diverse ideologies can come together to celebrate free speech and honor the spirit of July 4th, Independence Day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Beth Malloy, 190 Lumber Street. I came once again to speak out against the Horribles Parade and the fact that Parks and Recs covers it under their insurance makes no sense to me, because we have charities that use our common, and they don't get any kind of a cut. We don't cover, you know, the Michael Lisnow respite or the Jimmy Fund, you know? So why would we, as a town, cover a one-sided political parade? This is what I don't get. People can say, oh, it was great last year and nobody was made fun of. That's a lie, okay? They absolutely lambasted Darlene Hayes and her husband, who was the constable of the town. So please, take what they say with a grain of salt. I think this town is divided enough over the whole, you know, hashtag Tim thing and all of that. We need to come together, and we can come together next year in a 4th of July parade put on by the entire town, not just the Republicans. And that's what I really hope you guys decide not to do this, because it's just causing more problems in a town that is already divided. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, Mr. Harrow.
Ed Harrow, 8 Spring Lane. Are you going to have public comment when you're having the hearing on the Horribles Parade, or is this it?
Nope, this is it.
So I am in great favor of the Horribles Parade. It has a long tradition, and I have several comments to make. Those of you who were at Chuck Joseph's discussion yesterday learned that in the middle 1770s, your predecessors were taking discussions and votes on buying firearms for the townspeople. I believe the number was 12 muskets and ammunition and gunpowder. We're talking serious stuff, and you people were talking about it, or your predecessors. Secondly, I want to talk about Peter Gray. Peter Gray is a professor at BC who is a big fan of free play. We learn a lot with free play. We learn how to regulate ourselves. We learn how to get along with other people. I look at the Horribles Parade as an example of free play. I highly encourage you to take care of that. And lastly, we learn from history that we don't learn from history. That's a quote from Friedrich Hegel, and this is another example of that. If we allow this to fall into the wastebasket and not continue with the fact that we just had a previous speaker who said it's very one-sided because the other side chooses apparently not to be present. You know that I am not a fan of partisan elections. It does not mean that I am not a fan of political debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public forum? Yep, come on up.
Can I have permission to come?
Lenny, I forget, do you not live in town anymore, Lenny?
No.
So we're gonna hold off for now, okay? I don't want to set that precedent.
Through the
Thank you.
chair, I believe any member of the public can speak. They don't have to be a resident.
Would you like to speak, sir?
Okay. We'll come back to you, Lenny.
Stephen Snow, 78 Pine Island Road. I came to speak on another thing, but I will support the Horribles Parade. My kids enjoyed riding horses in it. I think we've already voted in this town to not be a partisan town, not a Democrat, not a Republican town. Vote as a town. So that should be a no-brainer. This is a parade for everybody. And not for nothing, if you're a politician, you should be made fun of when you mess up. That would be that part. Second part is, I tried to get an agenda on the table. So the town meeting 2024 voted to reinstate Sergeant Timothy Brennan. It's been tabled forever. It was brought up through Elaine Lazarus. As well, we all know that Deputy Chief Porter is now waiting for sentencing for child rape, 3 counts. We have some bleeding in town. Let's clean this up. It needs to be an agenda item. It needs to be dealt. Town council should not run the town of Hopkinton. It should be run by the people through the select board, not town council. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenny?
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I know I'm not a resident, but I was a former longtime resident, a past selectman, a past Park and Recreation Commissioner, and past chairman of the Horribles Parade. I took over, my wife and I took over in a time when it was all but done. They had tried different things. Dom Cadulo tried to make it a Macy's parade and start in Woodville, and that didn't go over very big. When we took over, as far as I'm concerned, it's always been a family event. I grew up on Mayhew Street and Summer Street. We always had floats, and everybody was involved. A lot of times, the fathers would put in one float, and the mothers and the kids would put in another float. When we were chairing it, we came to the selectmen, and we established a selectmen's trophy to best exemplify the Horribles tradition. We had a family trophy, music, animal, and all that, and a grand prize for the best overall float. So I just hope that you do vote in favor of having the Horribles Parade continue. As everybody said, it is a long-time tradition. Last year, the Grand Marshal was our distinguished state rep. I know he got some flack that he'd just be making fun of, but he enjoyed it and he wants to participate again. So please vote in favor of the Horribles Parade. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah.
You have someone online?
I'm not online. I was going to speak.
Oh, Amy. Mr. Sonnet's gone.
Eric Sonnet, 60 Teresa Road. I'm sitting here to support both Ken Weissmantel and the work he's doing on the town's water and sewer issues. I've known Ken a long time. Ken was a member of he was a water and sewer commissioner. I was a water and sewer commissioner and head of the DPW advisory board, which was an early version of the board that you have now. And I have to say that I'm sort of amazed at the growth of the fees for water and sewer. I was in charge of the fees for 9 consecutive years, being chairman of the Board of Selectmen when we were water and sewer commissioners, and twice as an elected water and sewer commissioner when those boards existed. I can tell you the 9 years that I served, we did not raise the water rate 1 penny for 9 consecutive years. We did not raise the sewer rate 1 penny for 9 consecutive years. And when I see, and by the way, I've attended the majority of the water and sewer board that you created, their meetings. And when I see proposals to raise the rates 25% after raising it 40% the year before and then looking at 10% per year kind of things, which essentially triple the water and sewer rates over a three-year period, I just sit back and say, triple the rates over 3 years. I think you need much, much more analysis of the current water supply, the alternatives to MWRA connection, which seems to be the driving issue, raising the rates. I encourage you to take the advice of Mr. Weissmantel, who's on the State Water Resource Board and knows the things that it takes to get approved. As far as the Horribles Parade goes, I support the Horribles Parade because having been an elected politician in this town for so long, if you do something silly, you know it's going to be on a float. And it sort of puts a damper on some of the stupid stuff that we're encouraged to do. I've lived here 38 years. And in those 38 years, last year and the year before, or the COVID thing, this is the first time the Democrats haven't had a float. And then they sit back and sort of, oh, look what you did to us. well, I'm sorry, they have a bigger organization than the Republicans do.
Thank you, Mr.
And the
We're
neighborhoods
running out of
do, and
time.
I'm done.
Thank you. Amy, you still had something?
All right, Amy Ritterbush, 54 Grove Street, just speaking for myself. I just wanted to take a minute to address, what happened a couple of weeks ago. And I want to say I really appreciate Mr. Hare's chairmanship last year. It was a very calm year. The meetings were efficient. We got a lot done. Town meeting went well. And I really do hope we have a repeat of this with Mr. Clark as the chair. So I'm just going to bring this up tonight, and then I'm going to let it go and move on. But, I've been listening to kind of my Angry Gen X songs these last couple of weeks, thinking about it, and it really bothered me that people were not choosing their words more carefully. There's a lot of talk about age and whether people had children or not, and I think we need to treat people with respect, and those are not reasons you could ask in a job interview of someone how old they were, or whether they had children or planned to have children. And people are listening at home. Young people and older people hear these words, and we need to choose our words more carefully. And we're going to have a lot of applicants tonight. Some will be old, some will be young, some will be in between, and I think we need to ask them respectful questions and not talk about, their demographics. So, and I'm just going to recount something that happened to me in 2016. I was in this room, and there was a vacancy for an open seat on the planning board, and so it was a joint meeting of the select board and the planning board to appoint a midterm position. Mr. Hare was chair at the time. And it was not an efficient meeting. It was 4 hours, but clearly he's learned over time, and his meetings are much more efficient now. But there were a lot of people applied, and I wasn't sure I would get a spot. But so that was not a big deal. But they went around and asked everybody to introduce themselves, and then they asked different questions of each applicant. And I, at the time, did have school-age children, and I was 9 years younger than I am now. And somebody asked me, would you really have time for this? This is a member of the planning board. And that's something that moms get asked a lot. But then here, 9 years later, I don't have school-age children, and so it's the opposite. So there's, I guess, some sweet spot somewhere between 4 or 5 years ago that maybe I would have been the right candidate for things. So I think that's frustrating. And the other question I was asked, it was just a joke question, what was my favorite color? And, clearly they weren't taking me seriously. I answered what was my favorite color, and we moved on. And there was really no need for that. And I think we need to choose to be respectful for all our applicants. Like, we're going to be able to appoint a lot of people tonight, but not everyone. And we need to treat everyone with respect, even if we don't end up picking them. So I just want to share my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Amy, can you double check the Zoom? Anyone? Okay.
I'm pretty old now.
What was handed to the members of the select board?
So,
Sorry, what?
What was handed?
I can give you a copy, or there might be an extra copy.
Yeah,
Wanted the records of the viewers.
it's an HR knowledge, what not to ask in an interview.
And it was given to me by the HR director of the town of Hopkinton.
Okay. So we're going to move on from public comment. So next up, I'd like to welcome Mass Senate President Karen Spilka and our State Representative James Arena DeRosa. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for joining us tonight. You're here to give us a legislative update on what's going on in Massachusetts and how that might impact Hopkinton. So we're glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us. I'll speak briefly first and then turn it over to James. Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you. It's always great to come to Hopkinton, and I appreciate your invitation to share with all of you what's sort of happening on Beacon Hill, because we are very busy. So I want to acknowledge Chair Clark. Thank you very much, and the entire board, Town Manager Elaine Lazarus, and my partner up there, who we work very closely together, James Arena DeRosa, representative for Hopkinton. We've become a great team getting things done for the town. I do want to acknowledge I have two district staff here, two people that I work closely with, and I think they work very closely with you. Susan Nickel, who's my district director, Momina Hadre, also on my district team, who grew up in Hopkinton as well. So it's great having them aboard. Want to thank you, starting out by thanking all of you for what you do. You do volunteer work. We know how hard this job is, and the time and energy and effort that you put in. Coming from a background on school committee, volunteer of my town, it's really important what you do, so thank you very much. I'm happy to see here today and share some updates on a few very busy months in the State House. Let me start by breaking news this week. The legislature agreed on a supplemental budget that will invest and pour $1.4 billion of funds from the millionaire's tax into statewide public education and public transportation. This will fill so many areas that we would not have been able to fill, whether it be early education and care for our youngest school children, some K-12 issues, free community college, public higher education, including $73 million for regional transit authorities, enabling our Metro West Regional Transit Authority to add more to evening hours, weekend hours, free fares that we were able to put in to make sure that people could go to their doctor's visits, their food shopping, their family, or whatever they need, work, whatever they needed to do. The regional transit funding is particularly exciting, giving the Metro West RTA's north-south expansion, which has been hugely successful here in the Metro West. So we've added for things like special education, as I mentioned, public higher ed, and career and technical education. We were able to expand. There's such a demand for career and technical education across the state. This is great news for Massachusetts and Hopkinton, and we look forward to sending this bill to the governor's desk before this week is out, actually. The House and Senate are also working out the differences on our fiscal year 2026 budget proposals. The House passed their version in April, the Senate in May, and we focused on delivering support to communities and vulnerable populations. We adopted an amendment lowering the cost of prescription drugs, which is something has been a real priority for the Senate, continued focusing on education, all aspects of education, and mental health, whether it be in education or elsewhere. We know that it still is a big issue for our folks. We gave cities and towns the authority to decide on how many liquor licenses they have. This is an area where I believe cities and towns know what they need to do better than the state legislature, honestly. And it should be up to cities and towns. And for this community, we were able to give for our local aid, all of our communities, we gave a 2.2% local aid increase. So, and $10.8 million in Chapter 70, a 6.2% increase in Chapter 70 funds, $60,000 for enhanced accessibility in the library, $100,000 to Project Just Because, which has been a longstanding institution basically here in Hopkinton and beyond, and I was able to give $100,000 for mental health programming for Hopkinton schools. We know that that got worse during COVID. It was an issue for our school kids even before COVID, and this is an area that I have really worked hard to try to pump more dollars and more resources into our schools to help our kids. We also put funding, I was able to put some funding in for all of the communities in the district, and funding car stations, electric vehicle charging stations. If we want to have more electric vehicles, we need the charging stations. Of course, all of this comes at a moment when we are bracing for uncertainty from the federal government. I am hoping that the U.S. Senate comes to its senses and does not make the devastating cuts that the U.S. House made. Just to give you an idea quickly, we have a $61 billion budget. If we get the cuts that the House made, we get up to $15 billion in just Medicaid funding alone. If we lose a portion of that, that will impact our entire budget. There's also been $3 to $4 billion in K-12 and public higher ed funding cuts, which would directly impact our students in Hopkinton's K-12 system, especially our special needs kids. So we are concerned. We're following that. We will do the best we can. We cannot predict what will end up happening, and if they end up making those cuts, we will work closely with you to try to adapt as best as we can and make sure that people will not be in pain as much as possible, honestly, that particularly our kids. The Senate has worked hard to protect our residents, defend our Massachusetts values, and lead Massachusetts forward. We've held hearings to protect our climate goals, heard from the Canadian Consul General about the tariffs, and because of the tariffs, the Senate has proposed getting rid of some of the 6.25% sales tax on construction materials. We have worked really hard to increase production of housing in Massachusetts. We did a $5 billion bond bill last year, but that will take time to build that housing. Developers have said to me that some of the projects they're putting on pause because of the tariffs and the increase in prices. We get pretty much all of our lumber and steel from Canada, and with the increase in costs and the tariffs, it's made some of these projects untenable. So I'm hoping that if we can get rid of our sales tax on some construction items, that will tilt the scales and have the developers go forward with the building of housing and bring down the costs. We will pass the SHIELD Act to protect our women's health care and gender care. We've provided funding for the Attorney General and extra funding for our veterans because some of their funds have been cut on a federal level, seniors, food insecurity, and again, residents with special needs. Lastly, I'd like to say that I've committed the Senate, and I look forward to hearing from you on some sort of cell phone ban in our schools. 18 states have already done some sort of limitation of cell phones in schools. Again, going back to our mental health and our children, it's a distraction. It's been used for cheating and cyberbullying. Schools should be safe. They should be a place where kids make healthy friendships and make mistakes, but it makes it a lot harder. So that's another thing we're working on. And I'm hoping that we can take up the Municipal Empowerment Act and the Chapter 90 bill soon, as soon as it's sent to us from the House. So I just want to offer, feel free to contact me if anybody has any specific questions, or my office. We're here to help as much as we can. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll add a few words. First of all, I am blessed to have as my senator, our state senator, the Senate President, Karen Spilka, and she's just been such a great colleague and support to me as I've acclimated myself at the House, and your team has been great as well, so thank you for that. We have a great partnership. And when we have these sessions with in communities that we share, I like to say she does the detailed play-by-play and really understands all that's going on, and then I'll add just a little color commentary to some flavors, some things that I've worked on pertinent to Hopkinton. And first of all, it's great to see you all. Congratulations to my good friend Shahidul on your re-election. I know we've worked together for several years, and welcome, Matt. I know we had a chance to say hello a few days ago. Look forward to continuing to work with Amy and Joe and Brian. And Brian, I promise not to tell stories I hear from Sinead, if you promise not to tell stories that you hear from her about me. How's that for, his daughter is an intern, and I have to tell you, I love all the towns I represent, but the interns that I have gotten through, that came through the Hopkinton school system, have been outstanding. It's really been a pleasure to work with them. So just a couple things that I wanted to add to what the senator shared. One of them, it's really important, we passed the biggest tax cut in a generation in the last session, and we are hopefully doing this session without any tax increases. I know that people are really worried about affordability. We hear that all the time, notwithstanding what may happen from Washington, because we're still not sure, so that's at least the plan for now. Similarly, we've been able to do this without touching the rainy day fund, which keeps our bond rating high, as I understand it. So those are just two overlays to what we're doing in terms of the legislature. I did want to note, and I'm going to have to watch Ken's shows, I am very concerned about the water and PFAS here, as we all know, is a big problem, continued problem in Hopkinton. I actually met with the state fire marshal because I wanted to get a better understanding of the training that had gone on in towns around Massachusetts. My idea was find out all the towns that did it so we could collaborate and work together. Well, what I learned was that up until about 25 years ago, every town just did their own thing. There was no united state program. So he gave me a few names of other towns that had the firefighting drills with the PFAS foam, and I'm trying to collaborate with them. The idea being that when we pass a PFAS bill, hopefully we'll make some special recommendation that communities that had the training get more consideration for additional funding for cleanup. We'll see how that proceeds, but it is something that I'm trying to push on a little bit. The senator mentioned Chapter 70. I think we're going to continue to have discussions about whether we need to revisit the formula. Hopkinton, like most of the towns I represent, is kind of in the middle. I am so glad that as a resident of Massachusetts, we care about education for everybody. So we took care of the Lowells and the Lawrences, and they get a lot of funding from the state. But then we kind of lumped everybody else together when ed reform was done a long time ago. And I say to people all the time, there's communities in the middle that maybe could use a little more help than they get. They're not ultra rich, they're not poor either. So that's going to be interesting to see how that debate progresses over time. We did get some funding to move the Bobby Gibbs statue downtown. I know we worked with the town and the 26-2 Foundation. She was the first woman to run the marathon and also design the statue, and it's of her, so it's kind of cool. So it'll be nice to see that. It's part of history, it's part of town history, it's part of women's history and sports history, so it's great that that will be among all the other statues on the Common. And then last, I just wanted to note a note on special ed. In this budget, we finally have given are fully funding the reimbursement rate that's currently in the law. I know that that's been a challenge for town budgets over the last several years. Beyond that, there is some push to look at a higher reimbursement rate. I certainly support that. It's always dependent on funding. But one of the ironies in the way we deal with special ed, and just to be clear, I think every child should get what they need. That's my starting point. But the question is who pays for it. And I even before I took office, I was approached by school committees that said, we can't deal with this 14.5% increase for out-of-district tuition that OSD, it's a state agency, just puts on the towns. I have a legislation that says, look, limit it to 2.5%. Why did I pick 2.5%? As you all know, because you have to live with that amount when you're dealing with the town budget without going to the communities. Now, they can still, if they so desire, say we we need more money and come to the legislature and the fair share fund, whatever. We'll see what happens, but it was just to make a point. We really have to look at how it gets funded and what happens downstream. But the irony to the way that this has all worked in Massachusetts is towns that get good reputations for taking care of students who have special needs and special education needs become magnets for families who say, wow, Hopkins does a great job, I'm going to move there. And good for them that they do that, and good for the town that it does that. But instead of getting rewarded by the state, in some ways it gets punished. So I think we need to rethink the way we fund it. And we're getting there, but I think we need a lot more work to do. But those are just some of the things that I'm working on and will continue to support. I really love working with this town. As always, if I can be helpful with anything, please let me know. I know, Elaine, you're not new to Hopkinton, but a little bit new to the position, and will continue to support you in any way that I can. And please reach out if there's anything I can do. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you both. You touched on a lot that, I think a lot of residents in town think about every day, especially the last couple of months. So if you guys have a few minutes, I'd like to give the board an opportunity, questions, comments.
Sure.
Amy, would you like to start?
Yeah, I appreciate everything, and I know something that's been concerning me, and I know, to all of us, the uncertainty of the cost of building items. Like, we were building a new school, we were doing a lot of water sewer projects too, and I can only guess, or it's uncertain whether these things will go up in price due to tariffs or be hard to get. So that's a concern on us, but I know you're tight on budget too, and it's not like you'd be able to send us more money for the school building project either. So I appreciate you laying it all out there, and I'm hopeful, but thank you. And I sent James a thing about the historic districts the other day, too.
I do want to mention that the Senate has proposed not a full look at of the foundation, Chapter 70 foundation budget, but recognizing that towns like Hopkinton have difficulty with their local aid contributions. So we're starting out with just looking at that and a few other things, a smaller version of a study, and then hopefully that will blend into or bleed into a larger, full Chapter 70 Foundation Budget Review Commission in the very near future.
Awesome. Good, Amy? Mr. Kisner?
Cell phone ban. I really appreciate that you brought up cheating. I remember the days where you used to program formulas into your graphing calculator, but perhaps since age is the theme of the day, I am aging myself. I do appreciate, however, that you were thinking creatively about how to manage that opportunity. I have a daughter who's 18 months, and while I have never showed her how to unlock my phone, she is well aware how to unlock
Matter of time.
Yep, it's terrifying. So I appreciate that you don't have your head in the sand on this one, and you're aware it's the front line for us. And frankly, as a young parent, the state taking a stand helps me take a stand.
I agree, and I think it makes it easier for the school districts. I think it should be uniform, so all school districts deal with this the same way. And we're looking, there are several bills, so we're looking at, I know there's, as I mentioned, 18 states have already made some limitations on cell phone use. New York has been one of the more recent ones. There are things to do that when a kid walks into a classroom, they put it in a pouch, the pouch locks up. When the end of the period, they take the phone back. They can have it during breaks, during lunch or whatever, making sure that there's ways for parents to still contact their kids. Most classrooms now have phones for the teachers to access, so the office can call the teacher because that has been an issue. But we will take a look at it. And my son is a public school teacher in New York City, and I hear him talk about that and other teachers and how important it will be for our kids' mental health.
Yep. I thank God every day that I got through high school before Facebook, because it doesn't look any better now than it did then. So thank you for that, and I appreciate you hearing, I appreciate hearing an outline of some of those best practices, including the pouches and things that I know we're currently utilizing in town.
And I realize that the school systems will need some resources to implement it too, so I am aware of that.
We're on the same page. And then, Mr. Arenas DeRosa, just quickly, you and I had touched base on this, but I appreciate that you chose once again to emphasize that our community is somewhat disproportionately affected by PFAS, and trying to find a way to right-size that impact to us and translating. That, to me, is the definition of local advocacy from our state representatives. So thank you for being mindful that while the state is discussing the broader impact of the issue and how it plays out in totality, I appreciate that you are maintaining focus on the unique impact and opportunity that it would represent for us. Thank you.
Mr. Manon?
Sure. Thank you, Senator Spilka. First of all, thanks for all your service and everything you do. We are a big fan. And obviously, you touched on so many issues. And thanks for the kind letter. I'm yet to respond, but I appreciate that. And thank you, James, for being here as well and supporting us throughout. And I think you touched all the key important things that matters for our town, for our citizens' lives, and for all our well-being. I want to touch on a couple of things. Just on the mental health, really happy to see and hear that you have allocated 100K, and fully appreciate your support there. Wanted to check if there are any plans for senior citizens vaccine programs, which our town has suffered on and off. Now we are good, but the biggest worry we have is because of the crazy things going on in Washington, we are going to probably be impacted one way or the other. And how can we keep our health department on all the services for our senior citizens as well as everyone's well-being afloat? If there is any backup plan or any thoughts that you can share. I have another comment, but.
Yeah, right now, to be honest with you, we don't know what is going to be cut. The House made some cuts. The Senate is still contemplating. My hope is that the cuts will not occur, and that certainly would be the best outcome for all of us. And if there are cuts and senior citizens, it's going to impact others. As I mentioned, veterans, I have a resident who contacted me. He served 4 tours of duty in Afghanistan, came back, got hired by the VA. He was fired when they made all their cuts, and he's having a hard time finding a job because his termination letter said it was because of poor performance. That was the only reason they could fire him. And then he's having a hard time accessing his benefits because so many people have left the VA. So it's going to inflict pain on a lot of people, but that's certainly the most vulnerable, our seniors, our veterans, our children, and vulnerable families and residents we will try to focus on, but we don't have the funds. I've been working on increasing the rainy day fund. I became chair of Ways and Means in 2015. We had less than $1 billion in rainy day funds then. Now we're over $9 billion. But if there are the cuts of the magnitude that the U.S. House of Representatives has been contemplating, we're not going to be able to plug all of those holes. So it will be working collaboratively with you in trying to target what might we be able to help.
Thank you. Certainly look forward to that and appreciate your understanding and focus on this area, of course. And on a couple of the topics, I appreciate all the comments Representative James Tirosa made on the PFAS. Certainly, we've been working with James on that, as well as economic development. So we'd love to see what the state and from various legislative bodies we can do more to ensure clean water. We have set out an advisory board who's doing the research and helping us. How can we promote better legislation, better awareness, and long-term mitigation of these? We have plans in the pipeline, but we need, of course, funding and more alignment. So look forward to those focus. And then on the economic development, as you know, we are pressed for budget, pressed for funding and our great schools. Thanks to, again, the state for supporting our schools as well. But there also, we need more, I think, focus and support. And we have set out more programs, Office for Economic Development, which can help us remediate the taxes. So those are the fronts, and James has been tremendous help and support in setting up our first economic development office as well with some grant and funding. Look forward to working more on those fronts. And lastly, I think the special ed that you have touched on, you both touched on, that's certainly a big part of success in Hopkinton. And as James mentioned and you mentioned, our schools are great. We've been a magnet for our great schools, bringing great neighbors, and on the special ed as well. And we do want to see some more proportionate state funding and support, which can help us keep our school excellence and special ed excellence going forward. And on that front, one thing to also consider is that for special ed, not only from the tuition increase and other support, if there is a way to expand or highlight the success that we have in Hopkinton and replicate it in other not so great, well-developed areas. How can we collaborate and help? And through that, we can perhaps get more support for our Hopkinton schools and also spread the goodies to other communities. A food for thought for our wonderful leaders such as yourselves for legislation and other initiatives as you see fit.
It's a great question, and the Senator can comment too, but one of the things that I've been trying to look at is, can we set up centers of excellence? Why isn't there more sharing between the towns around here? I mean, we have a lot of small towns. The lines were written 300 years ago. Other parts of the country would be one big community that was working together. And I actually had started looking at maybe a small earmark to research this. It was too late in the season, and we had some other things going on, but it's definitely something, whether it's sharing information, getting to the point where we can even say, well, we'll take care of these students and that need these kinds of needs. We'll work with you and bus students there. The other thing that's great for parents, and some of them have to bus their kids to an hour away, hour and a half away, and it would be great if they could either stay in their school system or maybe just a town over. So I definitely think we should be thinking about those kinds of things. I know it's been done in other parts of the state.
We do have that in the Metro West as well, collectives where the school systems are working together, and if one town is providing services in one area, another town might be sending their kids to, and it's more local, and sharing practices and relying on them. So, I mean, this may be an area to build out more, but it is happening with some really good people and great folks working hard at providing the best school system, the best school services for our kids.
Thank you. Thank you again for your and Representative James's support and continued service. I feel very lucky to have you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Herr?
I think my colleagues did a nice job covering various topics. Thanks for being here tonight. Hopkinton is a great town. I think everybody that lives in this town or knows this town understands, not just the schools, but everything else about the town of Hopkinton is great. And one of the reasons why is we've had excellent representation in the Massachusetts Senate and the Massachusetts House for years. Okay. And we thank you for that. One of the reasons Hopkinton is great, there's lots of reasons why, is because of you folks and your predecessors. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I have to say, you have to add, it's been a great partnership. We can't do our job unless we work closely with all of you, and we thank you for that. You've been excellent partners, bringing to us all of the issues that we need to know to fight harder for Hopkinton and the residents here to help make a difference together. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, once again, thank you. I think the board said it well. We appreciate the time. These issues, affordability, schools, water, federal funding, those aren't national issues. Those are local issues that are affecting our residents. And so we will be taking you up on your offer to stay in touch and get support as you guys take things. So thank you both for coming.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Next, we are going to move to the consent agenda. So the select board will consider the following consent agenda. Minutes for May 13th and May 27th, 2025. We will consider accepting a $1,000 donation from the Sustainable Green Committee to the Hopkinton Public Library to support the Library of Things. The town manager's appointment of a new employee for Amanda Landry as the youth services supervisor at the library. We will consider a farmer's market alcohol license for Craft Tea Kombucha, running from June 22nd to October 5th this year. A fiscal year end 25 transfers, from one town department to another. We can go through that in detail if we need to pull it out. We will consider the resignation of Porvi Tiku from the Sustainable Green Committee, and a General Law Chapter 268A disclosure form review and approval of 20B exemptions. So I will look for a motion, but first, does anyone want to break anything out?
I just want to make a point and thank Purvi Tiku for her service in the Sustainable Green Committee, and also Farmers Market for becoming bigger, larger, busier, and a great success. So just those comments.
Mr. Chair, I move the consent agenda as printed in the agenda itself.
Second?
All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous and carries. Consent agenda is approved. So next, we will move on to recognizing a few of our town's Eagle Scouts. So I believe we have, I think there was a note today, I think we have Alex and Sam in person. We have a few that couldn't make it, so would you guys like to join us up front? Have a seat, please. Okay, perfect. So welcome to you both. Thank you for coming. You know, an Eagle Scout's a tremendous accomplishment, and, you know, the town wants to take a minute to recognize that for you. You know, we have a little information about it, but we'd love if you each shared a little about yourself and, you know, the project that you did for your Eagle Scout work.
Yeah, so thanks for having us. For my Eagle project, I chose to create some Know Your Rights guides for a legal nonprofit in Boston. And in creating them, I wanted to cover issues that sort of apply to almost everybody. So I chose to cover workers' rights, healthcare rights, and then rights when interacting with police. And I then translated those into Spanish to make them as accessible to everyone as possible.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. Sam?
I helped rebuild the tomato garden at the senior center, and they use it for their meal programs. Completely new design, made it a lot bigger, a lot easier for them to work on.
Perfect. Thank you both. To the rest of the board, any comments? Mr. Hurd, would you like to start?
I had a chance to go the other night to the, I'm wearing those shoes again, by the way. I'm wearing my Scout green shoes. I went to the event the other night, and the Scouts, these two gentlemen, as well as many others in the room, younger Scouts on their way up, just did a fabulous job. I was very impressed with the whole ceremony, and I congratulate you both. And as I mentioned that night, this is something you should be proud of for the rest of your lives. Put it on that resume. It will absolutely help you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Manan?
I'd echo the same. I always love how the Scouts are so involved in our community service and steps up to do great things, such as what you have done and your peers have done. So congratulations to yourself. And as Mr. Hurd said, I would also echo that this is a milestone achievement in your long and very successful life career, I'm sure. So celebrate this, and you should feel proud, and I'm sure your parents and coaches are proud as well, and thanks to them for bringing you up to speed with your capabilities to do this, and I'm sure you'll do great things in the years ahead. So congratulations, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Mr. Kisner?
So I'll join the parade of older people telling you how impressive you are and what you have done. I will choose instead to highlight a different facet of it, trusting that others have told you how unique your skills are here. There are very few things in life that you truly have an opportunity to earn the way you have chosen to earn this. And I hope you understand that the skill is not that you learned how to build something or that you understood advocacy and championed the rights of others. The skill you developed was resilience and persistence. That is beyond measure in its worth, and it is applicable in whatever you choose to do. So Member Herr chose to highlight to you the value of this on your resume, and yes, there will be value on your resume, but I hope you reflect when you run into life's challenges, whatever they are, business, life, personal, relationship. Remember that you have already demonstrated the ability to overcome adversity and to do great things. It will serve you well as it has served this community. Thank you.
Mr. Brush.
Thank you. Yeah, I really want to thank you for your projects and leaving your mark on the town. You know, I have two boys who are Eagle Scouts in Troop 1, so I have fond memories, and I know it's a lot of work, not just for you, but for your families and for all your fellow Scouts who help, you know, volunteer in your projects. And it's a great project management skill set that you've learned. And I want to say, like, whenever I go to a protest or an event, I always bring with me my little ACLU, you Know Your Rights as a protester, and I love to take photographs, so Know Your Rights as a photographer, what you can photograph and not. So it sounds like a great addition to have the legal aid services in other languages. So I assume those will be available in town after you move on. Yes,
I'll have to check with the nonprofit, but I'm sure they'd be open to it.
Okay. And then the tomatoes at the senior center sounds awesome. There's nothing like fresh tomatoes. I know, I love fresh tomatoes, much better than the store-bought. So I'm sure everyone in the senior center will appreciate that. All right, so thank you very much.
Perfect. Yeah, I think they all said it nicely. This is a great achievement for both of you. We appreciate it. If you hang on for 1 second, I just want to recognize your peers that weren't able to make it tonight. So we had Nikali Vela Garcia, achieved Eagle rank in January of 25. Their service project was picnic bench, refurbished story walk at the Hopkinton Library. Ryan Pepin achieved Eagle rank in January 6, 2025, and their project was mini free library and meditation garden at St. Matthew's Parish in Southborough. Anakith Mikuleni, I apologize if I mispronounced that, but Eagle rank was earned in August of 24, and their service project was signage for the McFarland Sanger House. And then Aryan Samaga earned Eagle rank August 17th of 23, and their service project was hydroponic garden for the India Heritage Temple in Grafton. So if you'd like to come up, we have a little thing for both of you for your achievement, and we just want to say congratulations.
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 Yeah, congratulations.
Absolutely. Yep, we're going to do a quick picture. We'll stay right here, actually. Yeah, we'll go over there. We'll come around and take a picture. Okay, cool. Perfect.
Yeah, I love the ceremony recognizes.
So next, thank you everyone for joining. We're going to move on to the parade permit application for the July 4th Horribles Parade. It's being presented by Dan McIntyre and friends, so if that group would like to join us.
I'm a little upset he called you my friend. That's all right. Good evening. Dan McIntyre. We're here tonight to ask for a parade permit for the annual 4th of July parade. In addition, this year, we're also asking that the Select Board sponsor the parade. The 4th of July parade is something that's been a tradition in Hopkinton for, well, it's coming up on 100 years. In a few years from now, it'll be 100 years that the town has held this parade. And I think it's a nice tradition that we try to keep alive. After hearing that legislative update and all the challenges we face day to day, it's nice to come together one day of the year where the townspeople can gather together, where you can kind of forget about all those things and celebrate the birth of our nation. So I respectfully request that you issue a parade permit tonight for that so we can keep that tradition alive.
Thank you. Mr. Wisemantel, anything else?
I'm very lucky to sit here next to my friend Dan McIntyre, and the theme, if the parade is approved, the theme we're going to have is "Get Involved" would be the overall theme for the parade. Like last year, no hate speech, no pornography, no water, open to all people, all neighborhoods, all businesses, and all organizations. It's a tradition in Hopkinton. None of the organizers have ever paid the parade insurance portion. Some town department has always paid that once that became a requirement for a parade permit. And also, in days past, the police detail, we're usually required to hire 3 policemen, I believe, was usually done by a lot of volunteers out of the old auxiliary police. But right now, we're picking up that cost also. So there is no cost to the taxpayers of the town of Hopkinton for this parade.
Perfect. So you're really asking for kind of 2 things. One, the parade permit, and then for the town to support the liability insurance. So Amy, if you'd like to start, we can do questions, comments, and then we'll look for a motion after everyone has a chance to speak.
Sure. I do want to say that, we live near the parade route. My kids have always enjoyed the parade. In the past, they're all not kids anymore, but I think we issue about 16 parade permits every year, and so I don't have any objection to approving the parade, but I'm not sure about the waiving of the insurance. I don't think we have done that. We did 16 permits last year. It seems like there's a lot of good causes that would like us to waive that insurance requirement, so I'm not sure. I'm not really comfortable waiving it for this parade if we're not waiving it for others, because it seems like that would not be fair. But I appreciate the hate speech, and that you're branding it a little bit more of a July 4th parade instead of a Horribles parade this year. And I'll say my mom grew up in a town that did have a Horribles parade, so I do understand their tradition, too.
If I could just respond to that real quickly. We're not asking you to waive the insurance requirements. If a town board sponsors the parade, we'd be covered under the town's insurance policy rather than having to go out and get our own insurance policy. So, it's still covered by insurance, but in a different way. You're not waiving the insurance.
Is that correct? Or I guess if something went wrong, though, then our insurance premium could go up.
Correct. So the town's insurance policy would cover the parade should something happen. They would file a claim with the town.
And then if we did this for all the other organizations and good causes that ask for a parade permit, and other, some of them may be more careful than others about, or sometimes just accidents happen and it would be on our liability insurance. So I'm not really comfortable with waiving. I'm not uncomfortable with the town supplying the insurance, but I'm happy to approve the parade permit.
So Elaine, can you just clarify, because I felt like it was on the town's insurance last year, but it actually went through Parks and Rec. So is there a difference this year? Can you just make sure so we're all on the same page?
So correct. So last year, Parks and Rec sponsored the parade, and so it was covered under the town's insurance at that time.
Okay.
And also, for about the last 10 or 15 years, it's been covered by the town.
Is that correct?
That I don't know.
It has been. Prior to that, the insurance wasn't that complicated, so we just kind of picked that up ourselves. But I think when Norman came in, the policies somewhat changed, and Norman recommended that we go through a town board so it would be covered under the town insurance purpose, because it is a town event, it's a town parade, and Norman thought that Parks and Rec would be a good board to do that, and up until this year, we've gone through Parks and Rec.
Through the chair, if I may. Elaine, do we have data, like how many parades we have? I heard 16. I remember it would be around there. And how many historically and now from the town we actually help provide the insurance directly or through Park and Rec?
So this is the only instance I'm aware of where the town did provide the coverage, at least last year. At one point in the past, the Youth and Family Services Department helped sponsor the Pride Parade, but that's when it was just on the Loop Road area.
And do we know what is the reason for this exception?
It's a request of the applicant.
Because of the request?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Kisner, or Amy, do you have more questions or comments? Mr. Kisner?
Yeah, Amy, I appreciate the way you chose to go there because it was very much where I was. It's feeling a little bit to me like a friend who shows up at my house and says, I couch surfed here last year. I assume it's okay that I stop by again. Well, last year I didn't have 2 small children and my wife was much more amenable. Perhaps we should not have assumed. it feels like we have discovered this complexity at the last moment, and now we are coming to pass the complexity back to the town. So I find myself very aligned with Ms. Ritterbusch. I am very supportive of the parade as a politician who in my 4 weeks in this role has been made fun of significantly by people in this room, in fact. I'm okay with being poked fun at, and I like the way you messaged it. If you're going to be in a public-facing role, you should be willing to take a little bit of the jab. No issue there on my part. But I think Ms. Ritterbusch made the compelling point. This is not something that we do for other parades, and while I do appreciate that it is potentially tax neutral to the taxpayer, it is not risk neutral to the taxpayer, as Ms. Ritterbusch outlined. It does create a non-zero exposure for the town from an insurance perspective. Lastly here, and I know I'm on a roll, but stick with me, if the town is going to sponsor this, I also think the town should have a significant role in planning this. You are coming to us asking for our co-sponsorship, but it does not seem as though you are asking for our feedback and engagement in what the event should look like, who should be there, how it should be put on. So I am sensitive to the fact that ultimately you are requesting our sponsorship and we represent the community as a whole, but you are not asking for the community input. You're asking for the community discount.
All set?
Thank you.
Mr. Manon?
Sure. Is it public comment?
John, Director of Parks and Rec, is that okay? Just to give a little context.
Oh, behind the decision for the Parks and Rec not to renew it? Yeah, you can come join us, John. Yep.
Thank you. John Lewis, Director of Parks and Recreation. I know there's some questions, so I just wanted to give a little context on sort of order of operations. About 2 months ago, Ken Weismantel came to the Park and Rec Commission like he did last year for us to sort of sponsor the event. Last year we did sign off on the event. This year the Park and Rec Commission wanted to change the order of operations and get the feedback from the Select Board before coming to the Parks and Recreation Commission to ultimately sign off. I think the Commission sort of had some split decisions and different ideas depending on which commissioner you asked. They had different feedback. So this year the request was for them to come to the Select Board first to get their feedback and then to ultimately come back to Parks and Recreation. In that same discussion, the proposal of why not the Select Board sponsoring this event instead of Parks and Recreation, to the fact that Mr. Kizner just made that although Parks and Rec sort of signed off on the event, we didn't have any participation in the event or running the event itself. It was sort of just us sponsoring the event. So in terms of Parks and Recreation and the Commission, they were looking for more feedback from the Select Board first before anything goes to the Parks and Rec Commission. So just wanted to give that context.
So through the chair, while you're still sitting there then, assuming we say yes, and please in no way interpret that as an indication of how I or others are feeling, do you have money to support this, or are they going to pay for it?
Parks and Recreation does not contribute any money to this.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, John. Anyone else? Chaggle to you.
Sure, yeah. Thank you for coming and proposing another celebration for this year. Earlier in the years, when I had small kids, I used to participate and enjoy the parade as well. And I believe I think there are two issues here, or as you have asked for Select Board's approval and support, two things. One is the parade approval and one is the insurance support or liability insurance support. As for the parade, I think I have always been in favor of parade and bringing the community together and keeping it within harmonious and collaborative nature and theme. And that said, I also believe in freedom of speech, and I have mentioned it last year or last few years or every parade that I have approved, that I am a firm believer of free speech, and I always support free speech. And there are some, cracks on the politicians here and there. That's always welcome. But that said, I think on the second one, so for the first one, I do support the freedom of speech, do support the parade, and I have supported all the parades, and including this one. But on the second one, I think I would echo the same. I don't think that, especially within the budget constraints that we are feeling for the last few years, we should make an exception for this parade to support the insurance or the liability insurance. If we do, we should be consistent and support all 16 and make it a consistent standard, which we cannot afford to, I think, given the budget constraints that we have. And all the other parades have been able to manage it, so I would also request you to manage it yourself. I do not support that part.
Thank you. Mr. Herr?
I may be the only one that's confused, but I'm confused. Is this parade going to cost the town of Hopkinton money or not?
There would be no cost unless there's an insurance claim.
So if there's an insurance claim, okay. The other parades that we do, for the most part, I believe are like road races and things like that, where there's a revenue stream for the organization, and then that revenue stream is used to offset any costs that there may be. Is that true?
There's a variety, including the Little League Opening Day Parade, for example.
No revenue stream there. But like the road races, obviously the BAA, that's a parade permit, you know, those kinds of things. And then my other question, specific to the insurance and the revenue and all, and where I'm confused, has the town had these parades in the recent years? I heard 10 years, I heard 1 year. Have we provided insurance to the Horribles Parade in the last 10 years?
Yes, yeah. Last year, at least.
So last year we did, but I heard 10 years for...
I've been going to the Parks and Rec for a number of years to do this since Norman became town manager.
That was about 16, 17 years ago.
Yes.
Okay, so in that time frame, it's your understanding that whether it's Parks and Rec or the Select Board, the school committee, whoever it is, the town insurance was utilized as part of the parade?
Yes.
Okay, so the precedent is there, folks, right? So we're, I think, making much ado about nothing here. I'm a big believer in the parade itself, to Mr. Manon's point. It's freedom of speech, and we shouldn't do anything to infringe upon that. Our rights are under assault in many other ways in America right now, so I think here in Hopkinton we should maintain that and press ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think you're hearing almost unanimous support for the permit itself. The question is really on the second part with the liability. What would happen if the town did not provide the insurance for this?
We would have to go out and get an insurance binder and pay a certain premium for that. I think the town it's $1 million now that is a requirement, and that can be quite hefty. But following along Mr. Hare's line and even Mr. Kinsner's arguments, we're not an organization. We're not the Little League or Pride or Live Forever or any other organization. We're just volunteers that want to keep, a tradition alive. And if, as Mr. Kinsner said, if we can get more people involved over the year and make this a real town-involved parade, that would be great. I'd love to see that happen, but it's hard to get volunteers to do that. So we just try to do it on our own to try to keep that tradition alive. But it would be nice to have, maybe next year you could organize a parade committee and see how many volunteers you can get to really run this parade every year and be a real town parade. That would be my hope.
I think that's a wonderful idea. Not sure about the rest of the board. I think that, would give the option of trying to bring the town together, right? It's a town-wide thing, more involvement from all parties. I think that's best case scenario.
The other thing, if you sponsor not only insurance, but we get a break from the police detail rates too. There's a town rate versus everyone else. And so that's,
Do you know the cost?
What?
I don't.
Do you happen to know the cost difference for if you get the police details through the town or?
I think it's like it's another couple $100, but
It's a good investment. I enjoy writing that check to the police department, so I don't mind that at all.
Through the chair here, I think you've keyed on a critical issue. The delta here is not whether we support the parade. The delta is what the cost delta and risk exposure is to the town. If we don't know what that number is, it's hard to know that we've adequately evaluated and considered the financial risk. You're essentially asking us to embrace risk you are unable to quantify for us.
But I think that's not exactly the question. Like the risk thing, you're right, we can't quantify the risk. You know, as we did last year, we couldn't quantify that, but, you know, I'm asking them as a private group of people getting together to, you know, keep a tradition. They don't have that cost for them. That's on them. That's not on the town. The town would not be incurring that. So I think in a second, I'm going to look for a motion, for two motions. I know my feeling is, especially, you know, we're a few weeks away from the 4th of July. There's precedent here. It was successful last year. I attended it last year. It was a great, you know, I don't even want to say a couple of hours. It was not very long. So I would support using the town's insurance, but we're going to look for some motions, and we'll see how the board votes. But thank you both for coming up.
Thank you.
Yep. So first, I will look for a motion to approve a parade permit for the Horribles Parade on July 4th, 2025, with the road closures requested.
So moved.
Can I add a friendly condition that they supply their own liability insurance?
So that's going to be a separate.
We can't approve it without knowing where the insurance is coming from.
So if the parade permit is approved and then the board decides not to use the town's insurance, we could seek additional motion to require them to provide the required insurance.
Or we can say pending insurance confirmation on the first motion.
What would be in order here? So first of all, we've got a motion and a second. We just got an amendment. So was that a motion to make an amendment? I think we have to vote first, right, on the motion at hand.
You have a motion.
But are we in order to do that with the current wording?
Has someone made the motion?
Yes. So I just read it, and they said so moved. I think Amy said so moved, or Mr. Kisner said so moved.
So moved. We had a
seconded by Mr. Manon.
Right.
So I think we need to vote for that, and that's in order, as read on the first motion.
However, we can go for an amendment. So I move the motion to amend the first motion that it would be pending liability insurance confirmation.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I would say conditional on the applicant providing their own insurance, myself, but.
Okay, so the one thing I just want to be clear on, because I get the intent here, if the board votes to not have an insurance policy, do they have to come back to the board for the permit?
No, we would just condition it that it's approved on the condition they provide the required insurance.
They provide their own.
I think.
And that's, no, I think I get it. I'm just making sure we're in order.
But then if there's another motion later to
remove that,
use the town's insurance policy, then you'd have to go back and amend and change this motion.
But just clarification. So the first motion is approving the parade pending liability insurance confirmation. So the confirmation can come two ways. One is they can buy and provide the insurance confirmation, or with another motion, the board can approve the town to provide the insurance. So either of those will fulfill the condition of the first, hence it goes smooth. If none of those happen, then the first does not qualify to continue. Is that the understanding?
So, yeah, if the motion is to approve the parade permit, provided that insurance coverage is provided, that's generic.
Okay.
Okay, so that is the current amended motion. There was a second on it.
Yep.
All right. All those in favor?
Can you clarify what the motion is in front of us, please?
Could you?
To approve the parade permit, provided that insurance coverage is provided.
Okay.
And to be clear, we are voting on amending the language, not issuance of the permit.
You are voting on issuing the permit with insurance.
With the amended language.
We don't have to vote on the amendment. No, we just amend as friendly.
Yeah, this isn't town meeting. This is good.
So we
Sorry,
have,
showing my age again.
okay, so the motion on the table is to approve the parade permit for the Horribles Parade on July 4th, 2025, with the road closures requested, provided insurance coverage is provided.
Correct.
And that's the motion. There was a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, opposed? All right, unanimous, and it carries. So, thank you, guys.
We got to have a second motion, don't we?
Right? So now we go.
Whether to sponsor.
Okay, so I will look for a motion for to co-sponsor the horrible parade from the town to use the town's insurance policy.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, so that one is turned down. 2 to 3.
I did want to ask about the reduced police detail. Have we ever done that, the police detail rate, if we could give them the town rate, or only if we're sponsoring it?
I don't know.
Okay.
It depends on year to year. As the police, as part of doing a detail for the police, some of the volunteers have to do pro bono work at certain parades and things. And sometimes it works out that we can get some of that pro bono work. But other times we just pay whatever the going rate is. And that's really not the issue. The money is not the issue. It's really, we're trying to make this a town parade. You know, we're not in front of you as some organization. Like I said, we're just residents that want to keep a tradition going, and it's getting harder and harder. I really think it would be nice if you could really support the parade this year, work on getting a parade committee together for next year, and really turn this into an ongoing tradition for the entire town. It's been going on for, like I said, close to 100 years. The only thing that's gotten hurt during the Horribles parade is people's feelings, I think, maybe. No physical harm has been brought to anyone, so I think the risk is very low. You asked us to quantify risk. That's a question that no one can answer. When the town re-ups its insurance every year, you can't quantify that risk for just general town events, so I really would like you to reconsider.
So we already had a motion. It was voted on by the board. Unless there's a motion to reconsider, we would have to move on. But we appreciate you guys for coming. I think it's open, though. If there's a private insurance policy, the permit is approved for that. You do not need to come back. So
thank you very much.
Thank you guys for coming.
Sorry, through the chair quickly here, Joe. Compelling point made that we clear.
No, we're good. We're moving on.
I think you could. I think you could. No, I wasn't going to speak on your behalf.
I'm desperately looking forward to get zinged at the Horribles parade this year.
I think we'll all be a part of that, Ed, if it happens. All right, so we're moving on. Next, we're going to do the water and sewer rate setting. And we're going to do a public hearing for this. Select Board will consider setting water and sewer rates for fiscal year 26 and consider whether to offer water and sewer rate discount for eligible residents. Rate setting recommendations are, for water, the staff recommendation from the DPW is for a 25% increase for an annual cost of $53.96 per month for the average user. The Water and Sewer Advisory Board recommendation for this is 10% increase for an annual cost of $47.70 per month for the average user. And for the sewer, the staff and advisory board recommend the same 10% increase for an annual cost of $77.78 per month for the average user. The Select Board will seek public comment during this agenda item on the water and sewer rates. So if we'd like to, I think probably makes sense to start with have the DPW and the advisory board, if they're here, join us, go over, kind of the background to this, and then we'll leave a section for public comment afterwards. Yep, right up here. Perfect. And I'm going to take a moment to, pause. Eric is not here in the room tonight, but for those that don't know, Eric Carty just hit, about a week and a half ago, 40 years working for the town, for the DPW. It's a tremendous amount of time. I know he'd hate if he was here if we made him come up and call him out individually, but, I just want to thank him for his service, especially as we work through this. So, Carrie, would you like to start?
Thanks to the board. So we made a presentation last week. I think most of the information is in the background information that you have. As you mentioned, we're recommending a 25% increase with the water and a 10% with the sewer. And I really don't have anything else to add at this point.
Paul Gallagher for the Water and Sewer Advisory Board. We also gave a presentation at the last meeting. Our recommendation on the water side was for a 10 or 10.5% increase, and then the same 10%, same recommendation as DPW staff or town staff on the sewer side. So maybe just on the water side, obviously the recommendations are different. There were three options put forward by the Abrams group that does the rate study, and neither staff nor the advisory board really liked the third option, which was a 5% increase next year, followed by higher increase and then a lower increase. I think we had a little bit of discussion after the fact on the water side, where we had opted for different ones. Really, I think the key point is that both of these increases are the first year of a 10-year plan to move the rates up to support what we know will be much higher capital expense and operating expense as we improve the water system. And they all start from the same point, and they all end up at the same point with about a 15% retained earnings balance. So I don't think it's a very high stakes difference whether you go for the 25% increase and then lower increases in the out years, or the 10% level across time. And it probably, as much as anything, comes down to how high you want to build up the retained earnings reserve in the first year to be prepared for unknown events. That's kind of how...
Capital projects.
Well, I think we know about the capital projects. They all finance the capital, but things could go wrong, right? We're dealing with a system that's
aging.
That's aging and has some vulnerabilities, and we have a plan to address those vulnerabilities, which will take many years to execute. The advisory board felt that it was better to go level all throughout, and that the reserves were high enough. The staff recommendation was to build the reserve in the first years a little bit higher. I think it's that's essentially the difference. And then on the sewer side, we were in sync.
Yep, perfect. Thank you for recapping that for everyone. At this point, we will take public comment for anyone that wants to give their input on water rates, the sewer rates, how we're going to discuss this in a minute as a board. Doesn't look like anyone here. Anyone online, Amy?
That's fine.
Oh, Ben. Anyone online? No? Okay.
Go to the chair. I'm not seeing any hands.
Perfect. Thank you. So we'll look to the board. Mr. Hurd, would you like to start? Any comments or questions?
I'm just curious if you could maybe, I know you shared a little bit, and it might be repetitive, but if we could just understand the discrepancy between the 10.5% recommendation and the 25% recommendation, where do you see that really falling?
So the 10.5% has a slightly lower peak retained earnings reserve, which I think occurs about 2 years from now, and the 25% followed by 7.5 builds the reserves up higher. So basically for the next 3 or 4 years, both plans increase revenues much faster than expenses are growing because the expenditure projects haven't really kicked off yet. So the difference is just the 25% plan builds up a bigger retained earnings reserve, and I think the thinking in our advisory board discussion was it's better not to build that up too high. Like it's essentially meant to be, we're somewhat want to match revenues and expenditures in time to a certain extent. I just thought that the lower increase this next year would do that a little bit better.
Would the 10.5 put any capital projects that we're currently planning at risk, in your opinion?
Sorry, through the chair, can I respond to the first question?
Yep.
About the 25% versus the 10% request. So the Water and Sewer Department is tasked with providing safe and reliable drinking water right now. We've been asked why we get brown water, why can't we get more quarterly billing, why can't we get meter replacements, a ton of different things. To be able to do all these things that the residents have asked for, we need to be supported financially. So we are asking for a 25% increase to provide the services and the support that we think is necessary for the town to meet our objectives of a safe, reliable drinking water source. I personally think that it's been underinvested so far. We had issues last year. All the things we had were voided. Eric Carty, who has been a very reliable, amazing water manager for this town, 40-year veteran, is driving a rental car right now because we didn't have enough retained earnings to purchase the vehicle that we asked for and that got approved last year at town meeting through the town vote. So I am asking you very respectfully to honor the town staff and our expertise and provide the financial support that we need in order to meet the town's objectives for safe and reliable drinking water.
Great.
Thank you, Carrie.
To the second question, please. Do you see the 10.5 precluding us from following through on any of the capital projects that are currently planned to address some of the things that Carrie just mentioned?
No.
You do not see any risk there in getting those projects done?
No, I don't think so. I think both plans were included all the projects that are in the capital plan
over the next several years.
Over the next several years, yes.
Okay.
And yeah.
Great. Thank you. I'm good.
Mr. Manon.
I had a similar question. I think I got some through Mr. Hurst's question, but I'll elaborate a little bit. First of all, thank you for both of your service, and I really appreciate how the advisory board is coming up to speed and actually taking our burden of research and all the analysis and coming us with specific recommendations. So kudos to the board and to you for bringing this to our attention in a more consumable way. A couple of clarifications. So last year, we did 40% to catch up with the gap in our revenue and cost. So we have caught up on that. So this year, the ongoing, and I understand it's 10% now or 25% later, or however we cut it, it would be to catch up on certain reserve funds for long-term capital support. Can you clarify on that notion? In other words, the easier answer or question is, if we do 0% increase, are we okay with our cost and charges? That balance is okay or not? Is there going to be a gap on our operational expenses?
There is going to be a gap if you do 0% increase.
In operational expenses, not CapEx included?
There is going to be a gap if you do a 0% increase.
Okay. And if we do just for operational expenses, what would be the right percentage? Because I think 10% is contributing to some of it for reserve for long-term support for capital projects as well. Can you distinguish between the two and tell us that the reason behind that question is that for capital projects, we always go separately. And we know that it is looming. There's 45 million altogether, and thanks for bringing all these together as well. But that would be completely separately debated, funded, and all that. We don't want to mix up any of those components in the 10% increase. So if you can clarify that, and if it's all for OpEx, then I think it totally makes sense. But if there is any component for that, for future reserve for CapEx, I would like to understand that a bit. Did that make sense?
So the way the rate study on which our recommendations are based operates is the consultant makes the assumption that all of the future capital projects will be funded through borrowing. In actual fact, that won't be the case. There will be a certain number of the smaller projects that will be pay-as-you-go, but to have a process, he proceeds that way. It's not the goal of the study to figure out separately the operating expense budget and the capital project funding, the debt service. They kind of are all blended, and because the future capital plan is $40 million plus versus I think it's about a $2.8 million baseline total expenditure, including existing debt service. In order to avoid being on a knife edge, as happened last year, where you just don't have any money in the kitty to fund even a small project like replacing a manager's truck. Then so we don't have an answer, and the advice from the advisory board is please don't go there.
No, I understand. And again, we want to be fully supportive of DPW. Thank you for all the great work. And it's very complex, I understand. But Kyla, did you want to? Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody of what happened at town meeting. So in 2024, we did not have enough retained earnings to do our capital projects, so they all became voided. This year, as you remember, we had to resend and then resubmit all of the capital projects in addition to the ones that we wanted to do for 2025 into 2026. Again, we didn't have enough money in the enterprise, so we had to borrow from free cash. We have to pay that money back to free cash over the next 2 years. So that will automatically come from retained earnings. The debt that's going to hit this town is going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years. Our opportunity to increase our retained earnings should happen now, so it doesn't all hit the taxpayers all at the same time. That's where the employee side is coming from. So that's why we're recommending 25%.
Through the chair. So thank you for the clarification. So essentially, it's pay now or pay later, but paying later would bundle up too much. So we want to spread out now. Is that how we're interpreting?
Correct. It's also the plan that we submitted last year when we recommended 40% last year and then 25% the following year.
Awesome. Thank you. Matt?
Hi, through the chair. Ms. LaPierre, could you just correct my understandings? It seems we've gone through a time portal here. Is the purpose of an enterprise fund to be a self-sustaining fund capable of paying for the operational and capital expenses related to the enterprise fund? So help me understand what the concern is here as we are discussing the rate increase and whether or not it pertains to capital and operational expense. It sounds as though by very definition, any enterprise fund has to be dealing with capital and operational expense. Am I misunderstanding? So I think we may have some misunderstanding here at the board. An enterprise fund is meant to be self-sustaining. It is meant to be self-sustaining based on the money that it takes in from the services it provides to the town. We do not want to have to borrow to maintain it. We have found ourselves in that position. It is an incredibly negative financial behavior that we took, and it violated our financial bylaws to do so. It is not a position that we want to be in. To hear the pain in Ms. LaPierre's voice as she was describing the need for this, and to hear Director Reed tell us that services could be impacted if we do not take action, is frankly alarming, as is, and I apologize, what seemed to be a misunderstanding about what an enterprise fund and its purpose is. So I am deeply concerned that we are potentially not discussing giving all of the money that has been requested, given that, and it must just be my age and time in town, the decisions that preceded my time on the board have clearly created the conditions which we now find ourselves in. So I encourage all of you here to be thinking bigger picture about the actions that we take, school-age children or not. It is clear we have been underserving this enterprise. I will further note that this enterprise as a financial entity in town seems to be uniquely excluded from our financial requirements of maintaining a required stabilization buffer. I find that to be interesting as well. Ms. LaPierre, can you comment on why the enterprise fund seems to be excluded from that requirement to have a mandatory stabilization?
I can't comment on it. It's just, it hasn't been part of our financial policy to date.
So through the chair, we have an enterprise fund which seems to be unable to sustain itself and is not adhering to what has been otherwise noted as town financial practice. Sounds like we have some opportunity to do a little more digging and certainly to give them a bit more funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Amy?
Yeah, thank you. I listened to both presentations last week, so I don't really have too many questions. But after I've thought about it, although as a ratepayer, it's much nicer to pay 10% each year, I do see the very strong argument that we need to boost up our retained earnings right now. And then also I went to an MIPC meeting recently where they were talking all about the tariffs and how many products for building these things come from other countries. And so I think it is better to have a little buffer and do the 25% this year like the staff recommended, and then try to do the 7% going forward. And also I believe our biggest expense for the new Charleswood School is not this coming year, but the following year. So I think it is better to do the higher water rate now. So anyway, I would recommend we go with the town's option one. Town's recommended.
Perfect. Thank you. I know where I stand on this. As much as it, we don't want to increase rates on everything for residents. I think going with the town's recommendation, like we need to support, our town employees, the work that they do. This is a big part of that. We need to build back up retained earnings. We can't go back to another town meeting vote to re-vote on things that were already approved 12 months prior. So, I agree with a lot of what's said, and, I support that. So now I think we're going to look for a motion.
But I think we have a few options, right? So are we?
So I could start with making the motion as recommended by the town, but it asks us to recommend the 25% rate effective July 1, 2025, and then it asks us to fill into 0 to 100 cubic feet dollar amount, which I didn't see in the slide presentation. What would that be if we went with the?
I believe it's in the packet.
I really looked, I swear.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
So the way we have to read the motion is how much we'll charge for 0 to 1,000 cubic feet and from 1,001 to 8,000 cubic feet.
Through the chair, can you clarify what are the options and what is the recommendation that you're making?
So I'm making the motion for what is on slide number, or packet page 78.
There are three options.
You said 78, right?
Page 78 of our packet.
Yep. So what she's looking at is the 25% increase to the water. And Amy, I agree with you. I can't tell if that calls out the way the motion's
That's the way the motion is worded.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Carrie, back to your question is the way the motion is read is, it calls out the 25% increase for FY '26 as of July 1st. But then below it says there's 3 different metrics for, 0 to 1,000 cubic feet are X amount of dollar minimum, and then 1,001 to 8,000 cubic feet are a different amount per 100 cubic feet. There's different rates as it's like a tiered structure, and that's what Amy was asking for. If we could just have those, do we have those numbers for the motion?
The memo that was provided, that's on the Finance Department's letterhead, it's on page 2. So the 25% increase in water would be a new rate of Tier 1, $65.23, at Tier 2, $7.96 per 100 cubic feet, and at Tier 3, $16.53 per 100 cubic feet.
So I would make that motion as read by the DPW director.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, there's a motion.
I want to make one clarification so the residents understand. So we're talking about 25% this year, and as recommended, 7% for the next 3 years.
We're not voting on other years. I'm sorry.
Just for, no, it's good. I want to clarify that. So 25% for this year is the recommendation, and that's what the motion is about.
Yeah.
Correct?
Correct. It's part of the same 10-year rate plan that we discussed last year. The 40% was a part of that. So it goes 40, 25, 7 for a couple of years.
Right.
But right now, we're just voting on, the motion on the table was for 25% increase for FY26, effective July 1st. And then I believe the numbers were $65.23 minimum, $7.96 and $16.53 is Kerry read. So was there a second? Mr. Kisner seconded. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, that's unanimous and carries. And so now we just need a motion for the sewer rates. Amy, did you get those same numbers for the motion?
You just give them to me, yes.
Perfect.
We don't have any discussion on the sewer?
Nope, we can, I'll open up to discussion.
Okay,
So I think,
don't need to, but I just wanted to give the public an opportunity.
yeah, I'll just remind the public, the option here, both the town and the Water Sewer Advisory Board agreed on a 10% increase for the sewer rates for FY26. So any other comments from the board?
Just quickly through the chair, worth noting here that we chose to not raise rates in this space last year, so I know the 10% has a little bit of sticker shock. I encourage you to view this through the lens of last year's decision as well.
Through the chair, I think, again, I'm always supportive of water and sewer. We need clean water, and our sewer needs to go through. But I am in favor of clarification so the residents understand what's the rationale, what's behind it. We read through it, we've been doing it, but it's important that everyone understands it. So it's not to be pro or against, but for clarification. So I would seek some clarification. How did we come up with this number? And then we can, I think, go for the motion, if that's okay.
So through the chair, this is based on what we project for the operating budget, based on what was approved at annual town meeting for FY26, in addition to the 10-year capital plan, which included significant capital costs from upgrades to the wastewater treatment facilities, both in Westboro and Fruit Street.
In addition to that, it was decided last year not to do a rate increase to offset the water increase of 40%. We recommended a 5% increase, and that was not approved. So we have a little bit of makeup to do this year.
Thank you. That's it.
Any additional comments from the board?
No, I listened to the presentation last week, so I'm all set.
So I will look for a motion.
I move the motion to set the, sorry. I move to set sewer rates for fiscal year 2026 with an increase of, what's the final number?
10%.
10%. Effective July 1, 2025, as follows: 0 to 1,000 cubic feet at 11.68 per 100 cubic feet. 1,001 to 8,000 cubic feet at $13.86 per 100 cubic feet. And over 8,000 cubic feet at $17.14 per 100 cubic feet.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and it's been seconded. Any discussion before we vote? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous and carries. We're going with the 10% rate as proposed by both. Now we have a couple optional motions. There was a discussion of discounts for residents based on property tax exemptions. So Elaine, do you want to kind of walk us through this one and just, the background to it? We went over it in the last meeting, but just for those that are listening tonight.
Correct. For both water and sewer, the board has historically implemented a discount of up to $200 per year on the bills for residential water system users who qualify for the means-tested senior citizen property tax exemption and the other exemptions that are granted by the Board of Assessors.
Perfect. I'll look to the board for comments, questions.
We do these routinely, and it's a very small expense for the average ratepayer, so I think it's well worth it to provide these discounts.
Through the chair, I may ask an unexpected question here. Are we confident this is enough? Are we getting feedback that this is addressing the issue that it is meant to address within the community? I'm with you here, Ms. Ritterbusch. It doesn't actually sound like a big number to me. I want to make sure it's delivering the relief it's intended to deliver.
I think we're limited by state law how much we can do, right?
Oh, if that's directed at me, I'm not sure. I'll have to get back to you.
It
Okay.
qualifies under these clauses. It's not something
Okay.
we control.
It doesn't necessarily impact my vote here, but for future discussion, perhaps I would like to understand that better.
Thank you, Matt. Mr. Manan?
I support this. I think it's a good one. Thank you.
Mr. Hur? All right, I support this as well, so I'll look for a motion for the sewer discount to start, and then we'll follow up with the water motion after.
I move to implement a discount of up to $200 per year on sewer enterprise bills for residential sewer system users who receive property tax exemptions from the Hopkinton Board of Assessors under clauses 17, 22, 37, and 41 of Section 5 in Chapter 59 of the Mass General Law for FY26 effective July 1, 2025, and for residents who receive the Hopkinton means-tested senior citizen property tax exemption tied to the Massachusetts Circuit Breaker tax credit.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion by the board? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, and that carries. The sewer discount for 200. Now we'll look for the same thing for the water, if someone would like to make a motion.
I move to implement a discount of up to $200 per year on water enterprise bills for residential water system users who receive property tax exemptions from the Hopkinton Board of Assessors under clauses 17, 22, 37, and 41 of Section 5 in Chapter 59 of the Massachusetts General Laws for fiscal year 2026, effective July 1, 2025, and for residents who receive the Hopkinton means-tested senior citizen property tax exemption tied to the Massachusetts Circuit Breaker tax credit.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion by the board? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous and carries as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. Okay. So next, and we skipped over the public hearing. It was a continued one, so we didn't need to stop and open it up since it was continued, but I don't believe there's been any comment. Ben, there was no one on that asked questions from the public hearing?
Through the chair, I didn't see any hands.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. So next, we're going to move to our annual appointments for boards and committees. The Select Board will consider annual appointments to the following boards and committees: Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board, Community Preservation Committee, Economic Development Advisory Board, Historical Commission, Marathon Fund Committee, Permanent Building Committee, Water and Sewer Advisory Board, Woodville Historic District Commission, and the Youth Commission. So this is kind of a standard thing we do to kind of look at the applicants each spring that apply for some of these boards and committees. I think what we're going to do first is look for a motion. A lot of these were uncontested, and we have some of that here. So at first, I'd like to, go through for any uncontested boards and seats. We'll get that motion out of the way, and then we can move on to, if there's applicants in the room for some of the contested ones, we'd like them to join us and, discuss their interest and move forward with those as well. So,
Do you want me to go ahead and make the long motion, or do people want to meet the people who are here? We're a little late, so I'm happy to go ahead and just make the motion.
yeah, I think for the uncontested ones, and so we can just move on if you'd like to.
So I would move to appoint the following individuals to the boards and committees listed to the terms identified. Ken Weismantel to an at-large position on the Community Preservation Committee to a term expiring June 30th, 2028. Kwanji Hassan and Brian Kalella to the Historical Commission to terms expiring June 30th, 2028. Colleen Charleston and Carol Nathan to the Marathon Fund Committee to terms expiring June 30th, 2028. Mike Damasio and Robert Scott to the Permanent Building Committee to terms expiring June 30th, 2028. Divya Borelli, Nicole Simpson, and Diane Hayward to the Sustainable Green Committee to terms expiring June 30th, 2028. And Thomas Donahue to the Sustainable Green Committee to the Youth term expiring June 30th, 2026. Kawanja Hassan to the Tax Relief Committee to a term expiring June 30th, 2028. Robert Scott to the Water Sewer Advisory Board to a term expiring June 30th, 2028. Sean Davin and Tina Burlad to the Woodville Historic District Commission to terms expiring June 30th, 2028. And Will Schofield to the Youth Commission to a term expiring June 30th, 2028.
Perfect. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. We have one member missing, but any discussion from the board? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. So it's unanimous. We moved for all the uncontested board seats. Anyone that was part of that stuck around, we thank you for coming and sticking around. We apologize we didn't have you come up, but we'd like to keep the meeting moving. Mr. Kisner, we just approved the uncontested board and committee appointments. So next, we're going to move on to the contested board. So the first one up is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. There are 2 vacancies and 3 applicants. We've got 2 people seeking reappointment, Jack Nealon and Khwaja Hassan, and then Jacqueline Crow is our new person. So is anyone here from those 3 people that would like to come up and introduce themselves and speak on behalf of this? Ben, is anyone online?
Through the chair, I don't believe so.
Okay. So I will open up to the board, for any thoughts on how we'd like to approach this. We don't, typically we have at least 1 or 2 people in the room. So a couple of these people, we can discuss for a few minutes. I'd like to, remind everyone of Amy's comments at the beginning of the night. Let's do this fairly, appropriately, and work through this.
Through the chair, Ms. Lazarus, did we receive any feedback from the relevant board or associated town personnel?
No.
Through the chair, my recommendation is I've worked with both Jack and Khwaja while I was the liaison in the last couple of years, and I found them to be dedicated and effective in doing the work, so I would recommend for that. That's my personal although I do appreciate Jacqueline Crow to step up, and I do hope there are quite a few others where positions are available that we can accommodate that another spot.
Perfect. Mr. Hearn, any thoughts?
I'm good, thank you.
Amy, just to check.
No, I agree. There are other spots Jacqueline could apply for. So I think this sounds like a good solution to reappoint.
All right, so I'll look for a motion to reappoint those 2.
I move to appoint Jack Nealon and Khwaja Hassan to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board to a term expiring 6/30/2028.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, quickly through the chair. I will note that we started tonight with a discussion on generation and age, and we are ultimately opting to honor experience and not the new candidate.
Okay. Any additional comments? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
All right, sounds like 4 to 1. Thank you, Jack Nealon and Khwaja Hassan. You're reappointed, and thank you, Jacqueline Crow, for applying. All right, moving on, Economic Development Advisory Board. This is a new board. There are 7 vacancies, 5 at large, 1 planning board representative, and 1 Chamber of Commerce rep. Initial terms will be staggered, suggest 2 one-year terms, 2 two-year terms, and 3 three-year terms. There are 10 applicants for 5 at-large positions. Those applicants are Vikasith Prati, member of the Planning Board, but Planning Board has not yet picked a representative. So we also have Marcela Carian Rodriguez, Shravana Krishna, Russ Vanderpool, Robert Hummel, Michael Muccio, Finley Perry, Wilson St. Pierre, Jordan Thayer, and Muriel Kramer. And the Chamber of Commerce rep is Kelly Grill. So I'd like, anyone that's as part of that list, if you'd like to come up and join us, we'd love to hear from you. You'll all get a chance to speak. Appreciate all of you coming. I think it's great. I think the best thing to do to start is if you can, each introduce yourself, take a minute, why you have interest in the Economic Development Advisory Board, and then the board will, take a minute to ask questions or comments. And what we're going to do is, if we're going to ask a question, I'd like, the board member to ask it, and then we'll go down for all applicants and hear them one after another. Sound good to everyone?
Did we check if there's anyone on Zoom?
We did not. Ben, is there anyone on Zoom for this?
Through the chair, I'm not seeing anyone.
Thank you, Ben. All right, would you like to start?
My name's Jordan Thayer. I live at 44 Chestnut Street here in Hopkinton. I applied to the position mainly because I want to have more than a single vote at town meeting. As an active participant at town meeting, I'm interested in just providing more influence. I think I'm uniquely qualified. I have a long serving background in product management. The function of a product manager is to listen to customers, understand their problems, and develop solutions that solve those problems. And I think that would most certainly apply to the Economic Development Advisory Board.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good evening, Robert Hummel, 13 Mayhew Street. I am currently the town planner in Wayland, so I deal with this from 8 to 4 every single day. So the reason why I applied to is I'm a new resident and I wanted to get involved with the town, and I live downtown, close to downtown, so I walk to downtown all the time, and I just want to be part of this town and try to provide the knowledge and the experience that I have working in municipal government. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Shravan Krishna, 1 Fairview Path. First of all, thank you for doing this. Last year my tax bill went up by 10%, and initiatives like this where we could figure out how to diversify our revenue stream are going to be really helpful for property owners. So definitely appreciate that. And obviously, because I saw this as an opportunity, not just complain about my property taxes, but also maybe perhaps contribute. I've been a senior technology leader heading data and analytics organizations for a long time. I'm kind of afraid to age myself. So, data is what I do for my day job, and it looks like a significant portion of this role would have data collection, right? Collecting the right data, analyzing the data, and figuring out options. Because if somebody knew what to do, it would have been done already, right? So it's kind of looking for new opportunities, right? How do we enhance our operations? Things of that nature is what I do for my day job. So that's why I'm interested. Again, thank you so much for starting this initiative.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, Wilson St. Pierre, 22 Huckleberry Road. I just want to say I'm heartened by all the turnout for this position. I think we have a lot of qualified individuals in town. Where I think my specific expertise is, I've been in the financial services industry for the last 14 years. I think that's a skill set that's maybe shared by many others up here. One area unique is I served on the Growth Study Committee with Ms. Ritterbusch and a couple of the other applicants for this role from 2019 to 2021, and Mr. Menon was also involved with that. And I think I learned a lot about benchmarking our town's performance and historical trends versus kind of what we considered our near-peer towns, which for that study were Acton, Medfield, Westboro, and Westford. And I think we kind of had a shadow participant in Sharon that didn't make the report, but was also an interesting town to look at. So I think in terms of deep historical knowledge for someone who's a relative newcomer to town, having only lived here since 2013, I've gained that through the Growth Study Committee. And one of the recommendations of that Growth Study Committee was, in fact, the Economic Development Office. So it's great to see this come full circle.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. I appreciate you all coming up, especially showing up and sticking through the meeting tonight. So I'll start with the board. Amy, would you like to start with questions, comments?
No, I don't think I have any questions because we did have all the information in our packet, but I was definitely very impressed with Robert Hummel's Wayland Town Planner experience, and I think MIPC as well. And then I've worked with Wilson on the Growth Study Committee, so, yep. And there was a lot of information in the packet, so I don't think I have any questions.
Okay. Mr. Kisner?
When do you guys start? I love this team. I've got project management, I've got civic governance, I've got my trouble in my IT, and then I have my finance. What can this group not solve for us? I'll echo the sentiments. I appreciate that you stayed. We're 2 hours into the meeting. This is my volunteer job. You didn't have to be here, and it says an awful lot about your engagement and desire to be part of the town. I wanted to ask a nominal economic question, but frankly, there's only 4 of you, and I need to find a 5th as well. So I will look to my other members of the board and ask, since we have established the precedence of have we work with these people, excepting for the former chair of the select board, are there any other members of the 6 applicants who are not in front of us that this group has worked with?
Well, I've certainly watched Vic Fickasoth on the planning board, although I've not worked with him directly. So I know he's an active participant and lives near South Street, so I think that is good.
Yeah, no, first of all, thank you for stepping up.
Sorry, I'm still looking for an answer to my question as to whether you or Mr. Herr has worked with any of the other 5 members, excepting for the former chair of the select board, Ms. Kramer. In our previous discussion, we established the precedence that there was a desire to be voting on people who we had worked with previously.
I'm not sure I followed the question, but I know Mr. Finn Perry also served in the Growth Study Committee with us. I don't know, Mr. Herr.
Yeah, Finn Perry's been great for the town of Hopkinton for decades, so he'd be an excellent candidate, I think, for the role. And I think Ms. Kramer would be awesome as well in the role, given her experience in the town. I echo the points someone made about those that showed up. I think that speaks volumes to your willingness to get engaged, so I have no problem with that at all either. I mean, we're looking for like 7, right?
Yeah, but it's really 5 because one's going to be a planning board rep and then one is Chamber of Commerce. So
5 from that list.
Yeah, we've got 4 of the 5 here. I'll share my feedback. Like, this is the one time I do have a preference, and it's for when people show up and, you know, come meet us in person and, you know, take time out of your day. So that's the one thing I stand for. My only question for all of you is, you know, we only have, you know, a couple different terms, right? So we've got 3 3-year terms, you know, 2 2-year terms. Does anyone have a preference? Because you can't all have a 3-year term. That would be my first question. If you guys, is anyone willing to do a 2-year term? Or leave it? You'll do 2?
I don't mind.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hummel.
I have one additional caveat, that anything that, if I were chosen, would have to be approved by my employer. So that may be a determining factor. It's unlikely that it would be declined, but it is like a conditional aspect that I would have to adhere to. Would not. I don't know the answer tonight, just so that's it.
I mean, Ms. Lazarus, I think we can accommodate something like that in a motion. Is that
Or you could just quickly resign if, you know, if your employer doesn't.
Or like we had someone on the Historical District Commission that just never got sworn in, so.
Yeah, that's always an option.
I was hoping to have an answer by tonight, but unfortunately it doesn't work quite that quickly.
Through the chair, can we get the names again? I do appreciate your comment that talented people that are here and who showed up. Lynn.
I think I made notes if you want me to do it, but.
I got them.
So, but we have to pick which terms too, but.
I think we just covered that. Mr. Hummel offered to do the 2-year term.
Okay.
It sounded like everyone else would prefer the 3-year, unless, this is your chance. If you want a shorter term.
I'm good with anything.
Okay.
I have no preference.
Okay. So I'd make a motion to appoint Shavana Krishna. Robert Osmond said 2 years, right? Okay, so Wilson St. Pierre and Jordan Thayer to the 3-year terms on the Economic Development Advisory Board.
Second.
All right, so there's a motion for, 4 applicants. Any other discussion? We'll move on to the rest of the applicants after, but if not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, that is unanimous and carries. Gentlemen, thank you. We appreciate you. With your employer, just let us know if something comes up. You said you didn't anticipate it, but we appreciate all of you jumping in, especially for this new board.
And then I'll make a motion to appoint Robert Hummel to the 2-year term.
Second.
Right.
Oh, yeah, we didn't do that.
What's the motion?
Mr. Hummel to the 2-year position. Yeah, we just did the 3 for, all right, so there's a motion and a second. Doesn't sound like any discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nope, that is unanimous as well. So again, all of you, thank you.
Question for clarification, and this would start on July 1st, is that correct? The term?
Yes, I believe so, because they were all ending June 30th. Yeah, correct.
And I recommend an additional motion for a 1-year term for Kelly Grill, representing the Chamber of Commerce.
Yep, she's the chamber.
Make a motion to appoint Kelly Grill as the Chamber of Commerce representative for a 1-year term on the Economic Development Advisory Board.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That one is unanimous. So now we just have, you guys are welcome to leave. You can stick around.
Thank you for your service.
No, thank you guys for all.
Thank you all.
So as far as, we've got the last one, the planning board rep. This Vikasith Prati is on the planning board. It sounds like we should, hold off on that to let the planning board decide. So I think we'll pass on that. I don't know, we talked about a couple people that would make good candidates. The one I had, I think it's Muccio reached out, and said he was unable to make it tonight, but, expressed his interest. I believe he was traveling for work. So do we want to make a motion on the 5th at-large for the 1-year seat? Do we want to hold off until we get the planning board seat at the next meeting?
So is there just one position left then?
There is one 1-year position left.
And
Or sorry,
And one at-large and one planning board.
yeah.
there's one at large and one which?
Planning board rep.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, I move that Finley Perry be appointed to the at-large position.
Second then?
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
And
Okay.
a 2-year term?
Or is the 1-year?
Well, we could save the 1 year for the planning board.
Okay, because they change every year.
Right,
Yep.
Okay, I like that. So do we need to amend that motion for the 2-year?
Just add it on.
I think you want to add that on, the 2-year seat?
Sure, please include that.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second. Perfect. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, that's unanimous and carries.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, that is not unanimous. I have abstained.
Sorry.
You abstain?
We had one abstention.
Through the chair, I don't know the individual.
Okay, so that gives us just the planning board 1-year seat that we'll work to at a future meeting. So now we have the Veteran Celebration Committee. There are 3 vacancies and 4 applicants. The person seeking reappointment are Jennifer Donahue, James Billy, Randall Kramer, and then the new person is Stephen Smith. Is anyone here from any of those applicants?
Through the chair, I checked with the Fasuda today, and I believe there are actually 4 openings. That's what she emailed me back. Do you want me to?
I didn't see that. Is it 4?
I'm going to just check my email, but I asked her today because I counted up that there were more than 3 open.
I'm going to have him join us in the meantime.
Sure.
Yeah. And Ben, is anyone online?
Through the chair, I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you. Awesome. Thank you for coming. Would you like to introduce yourself, share your thoughts?
So Stephen Smith, 12 Jamie Lane. So I'm a 28-year Air Force veteran. I recently moved to town the last 2 years. However, I grew up in Millis. That's where I spent my formative years. But then I moved away for 38 years, serving the nation, and then I lived a little bit in Georgia, and then I did a 3-year assignment overseas, working as a civilian employee for the U.S. Army, and then now I've come back and settled here in Hopkinton.
Awesome. No, again, most of the board, we get your information and your application, but I think it's great for the town. If you're going to come here, take time out of your day, we like hearing from it. So I'll open up to the board. Any questions or comments for Mr. Smith?
Stephen, thank you for your service.
Stephen, thank you for your service and also for stepping up. It's obvious you'd be a great candidate. Thank you.
Mr. Kisner?
I'll join the parade thanking you for your service, but I will ask, in your travels, what have you seen that actually has been a successful culture of veteran celebration, and what perspective or ideas independent of your service are you potentially bringing to the committee?
Well, I mean, like I said, I've been away from this area for 38 years. I've noticed coming back, living, first I'll say during the house hunting search, which we were doing right around this time last year, or 2 years ago. And then starting to see some of the veteran celebrations in the other towns. I've seen, they have this celebration of veterans. I think they do it in Westboro. They do also do it in some other towns, where they have the banners, of the veterans, hanging in town. I think that's a really good way to bring them up. When I lived in Georgia, I was pretty active in the American Legion Post because it happened to be right next door to where I lived. So I was. And what I also see is, you talked about age. Our veterans are graying out. Let's face it. Somebody like me, I joined the military, in the 80s and served for almost 30 years. And I'm I'm like the baby at those meetings. That's no kidding. And we want to celebrate their service, especially now we're in the point where all of the World War II veterans, where very, very few of them are still alive.
Yeah.
We're in the Korean War veterans, where very, very few of them are still alive. We're in the Vietnam era, where they are the kind of the forgotten veteran, from their time in service. So I think honoring those are extremely important. And now what a lot of people don't realize is only 1% of the current U.S. population serves in the military. And that's a number that's hard fast today. Total of 6% of the community, the U.S. population has served any time in the military. That's all the veterans. So you're talking about a significant number of people that are not necessarily being honored for their service.
Through the chair, that sounds like the technical acumen and engagement I was hoping to hear for. I appreciate that you also took the time to share your best practices from your travels and your career. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear. This is a critical issue, but it's not a new or a novel issue. Please don't hear that in a dismissive way. Rather, this has been solved by a lot of communities. I'm excited that you're coming and asking to bring that perspective from your travels and that you want to see the community reflect that. Thank you so much for stepping up.
Thank you, Mr. Kisner. Amy? Question?
Yeah, no, thank you for stepping up. My husband is from Millis, and he always told us that the Veterans Parade, or the Memorial Day Parade at Millis was much bigger than Hopkinton, even though Hopkinton is a bigger town.
As a young little leaguer and high school band member, I marched in that parade.
Yeah, the band marched. Our band doesn't march, I don't think. Anyway, so we can work on that. But I appreciate you're seeing all different angles of the situation, and I think you explained it. You explained it well. That when we've gone to the veterans events, it is usually the older crowd, and I know there are younger veterans, but fewer. Yeah.
Perfect. Did we get any clarity on the number of applicants?
Well, what Vazuta emailed me, she said it's an 8-member board. We have 3 upcoming reappointments and 2 more vacancies. So in answer to your question, yes, all of them can seek appointment. So Elaine concurs.
Perfect.
Vasuta's recommendation.
Okay, that makes it easier. So I'll just echo what they said. Thank you. I love that you're getting involved. And I'm going to look for the board for a motion.
I move to appoint Stephen Smith to the Veterans Celebration Committee to a term expiring 6/30/2028.
Second.
Do we want to can't we do all 4 at once? Do we want to amend that to include the other? We have room for all 3, like all 4.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, just offer a friendly amendment here.
But they're different term lengths, I think.
So, well, Mr. Smith is here, so I think I'd like to give him the choice. Do you have a choice on term length?
3 years, 2 years, or 1 year.
This one, I think this one is just They're all three years.
They're all 3 years.
Okay.
What did I miss? I'm sorry. I thought we had 3 vacancies and 4 applicants.
So Amy and Elaine can confirm that there's actually, 3 vacancies. There's 5 vacancies total, I believe.
Okay.
Yep, so we don't need to pick anyone.
That's great.
So I believe, were you okay with amending to include all 4?
Sure.
And do we have room for all 4 to be 3 years, or does it need to be 3 and?
This one, it's not as regimented, so we just appoint people to the full 3 year.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I'll amend to add Jennifer Donahoe, James Mirabel, and Randall Craig.
Second.
Perfect, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Perfect. It's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming
Congratulations.
tonight.
Thank you so much.
All right, next. Kyla, would you like to join us? She's chomping at the bit to get out of here. She's actually running up. So this, we're going to go over the preliminary tax billing for next year. We'll receive an update on the preliminary tax bills designed to provide an early estimate of property taxes due for the upcoming year. The Finance Department will explain the process and the calculation for the next preliminary bill cycle. The idea here is just transparency, right? We know what the debt situation's like, so if we're also looking at the revenues, where we're going to stand when it comes to the budget. So just giving an early view of that. Correct? And
Correct. There is a 3-page presentation that was submitted. We don't have to go through the pages in essence of time, but I thought it was important to showcase this today because the preliminary tax bills have been sent out.
Yep.
And the impact to Hopkinton is as follows. The projected bills are expected to increase because of the debt. We wanted to get out in front of the residents early to make sure that they know the preliminary tax bills will show an increase. They will not be reflective of the real and actual tax bills that will hit the further quarters in the year. However, they will get a good estimate. They will not have the updated valuations, and they will not have the new tax rate, but they will have a 3% inclusion of the excluded debt that's projected to hit the town for FY26. So on the last page of the presentation, there are examples based on different valuations of housing, just to give the residents an idea of what could be on their preliminary tax bills. So there's median and there's other valuations from A to D, depending on the type of house that you have and the impact that you're expected to see on your tax bill. And again, I want to make sure everyone understands these are just estimates. They are subject to change at the beginning of '26 when the real tax bills come out. The valuation is projected to go up and the tax rate will change.
perfect. Would the board like to, any questions or comments? Mr. Herr?
No, no surprises. Thank you.
Mr. Manon?
No, I think, again, no surprises, but as much as we can try to manage it going forward is our commitment. Now, I was just wondering, again, I ask questions because I want clarity and transparency for the residents to understand. Can you give an example of how it would impact an average tax bill, average resident tax bill?
Yeah, so that's on page 3 of the presentation, if somebody can pull it up.
I think we just had it a minute ago. There it is.
So the valuation that we keep using is the median single-family value. So of $918,000, the FY25 tax rate is 14.18. We are projecting an increase of almost $700. But that's based on FY25 valuation and tax rate. The preliminary bills historically have not included an excluded debt percentage. This is one of the first years that Hopkinton is increasing the preliminary bills just to prepare residents for what they will see when the actual bills are sent out.
And that's the 3% you referenced.
Thank you.
Mr. Kisner.
Through the chair, safe to assume here, Ms. LaPierre, that this is intended to allow for a successful operation of the town in the context of fully funding the operational budget, and that the projected tax increase here is also reflective of the currently forecast capital expenses for FY26?
Correct. It's also allowing the residents to budget appropriately so they don't see large increases in the actual tax bills.
Thank you. So through the chair, as we've noted here about transparency and understanding for the community, I really did want to reinforce that. So yes, you are seeing a tax increase, but this is also with a forecast of what we expect the budget to look like and what we expect capital expense to look like. So this is, as Ms. LaPierre has put it, us trying to get ahead of it so that we are not surprised later in the cycle. It also reflects forecasted planning. We're trying to do our due diligence here and do this the right way. I appreciate you coming forward and thinking of the impact to the taxpayers.
Perfect. Mr. DeBush?
Yep, I want to thank you for presenting tonight. I think it is good to prepare the public for it. I know that the preliminary tax bills always say preliminary at the top, so I think people who've been here a while do understand that what it means, but new people might not be prepared that it may actually slightly change when we get the final bill. But I appreciate you having this tonight, and now if anyone asks me a question, I can just show it to them.
No questions, thank you. I think this is a great thing that we do, putting it on, the 3% on there, because we've talked about this increase for years. Next year is when it starts to kick in, right? So the more people know. And any comments from Elaine? Anything? Perfect. Okay. Kyla, thank you. All right. So we're going to move on to the public hearing that was continued. Poll petition for NSTAR Electric Company, DBA Eversource, for Hayden Row. The select board we already opened the continued, we didn't have to open the continued public hearing, correct?
Just reopen the public hearing.
So we will reopen the public hearing on a petition to relocate 2 poles on Hayden Row. Relocate 1 jointly owned pole numbered T61/E61 on the east side of Hayden Row Street at a point approximately 160 feet northerly from the center line of Chamberlain Street and approximately 4 feet north and 6 feet east of the pole's current location. Relocate 1 jointly owned pole numbered T66/E66 on the east side of Hayden Row Street at a point approximately 405 feet southerly from the center line of Chamberlain Street and approximately 6 feet north and 8 feet east of the pole's current location. So double checking, Ben, anyone online?
Through the chair, I don't believe so.
Perfect. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly, yes. Don Bonner with Verizon. Just to rehash what happened last time, we had an abutter show up who was concerned with trees. And I went and visited him at his house, and we talked about what he was looking for. Excuse me. He's concerned that tree cover will be lost when this new intersection is put in place. And he wants as many trees to remain as possible. So we looked at the trees, and I reported back to the powers that be, and found out that all the trees that are going to be touched are on town property. So there's nothing affecting his personal property. And I believe after speaking with Ms. Lazarus that there is a plan in place to affect new tree cover for the gentleman and for his family. So there's nothing we can do to, we're not affecting his property, first of all, and there's nothing that we can do to the trees on his property. So we hope we have addressed his concerns well enough. I don't know if he's online or not, but he can certainly speak for himself. And I don't know if Elaine has anything further to add.
Sure. So the 5 trees, I believe, that are being removed are on town property, and they're taller trees, so there is the canopy there that kind of blocks that area. The elementary school building committee has worked with all of the project abutters and has a plan for mitigation for tree removal. Unfortunately, they did not know that at the time that they prepared that plan, that these trees would be removed because Verizon had not yet identified the location for the new pole. But this homeowner is getting some additional screening inside their fence, and then on town property, there's some trees being added that will eventually grow up and hopefully mitigate some of the impacts. So the new trees will be shorter, so there will be an impact to the abutter. So the town is adding trees, but not in the location where they're being removed because the pole and the wires will be there.
Perfect. Thank you both. To the board, any comments, questions? Ms. Ritterbusch?
I don't think so. So there's nothing to prevent us from going ahead tonight. The Charles Wood School Committee is working on mitigating as best they can.
They are, but they can't replace the trees where they are because of the pole and the wires will be there.
Okay.
So trees will be added in other locations.
Okay, to add more tree canopy elsewhere. Okay. I don't think I have any further questions.
Through the chair, so first, I always want to recognize when we're using the term abutter, which sounds a little callous, I know it's the technical term, member of the community, a constituent. I always want to recognize when somebody who lives here comes and advocates. Regardless of the decision that we make, I appreciate how empowered this individual has been to represent their concerns and, frankly, the community values. We are an arboreal community that takes pride in our green values and our green ideals, so I'm happy to hear those advocated for. I do unfortunately have a technical question for you, and you'll have to pardon my ignorance here. I'm young and new to this. I'm looking to understand, is there anywhere else this pole could go? So we're having a conversation right now about where we have selected. We have uncovered, based on your survey, a delta with I'll go back to a butter. So this is the period of the project where I usually look at someone and I say, so is there another option here? And if the answer is no, the answer is no, but I would be remiss if I did not ask.
Sure, yeah. No, I can tell you the pole has to move backwards because that's where the road's going. And there's, short of moving a few feet left or a few feet, well, actually it can't move right because then it would really get into the tree line. It could move a little bit left, but that's not going to affect any changes to the concerns.
You'll have to pardon the pun, but it sounds like there's no low-hanging fruit here. It has to move, and there isn't a lot of other spot for it to go.
Correct.
All set. Mr. Manon?
No further question.
Mr. Herr?
Thanks for the follow-up after the last meeting. I'm all set. Thanks.
I'm good as well. Thank you for joining us, sticking around tonight. So I will look for a motion from the board.
I move to grant joint or identical locations for and permission to erect and maintain poles and their respective wires and cables to be placed thereon, together with anchors, guys, and other such sustaining and protecting features as said companies may deem necessary in public way or ways hereinafter referred to as requested in the submitted petition. Hayden Row Street, relocate one jointly owned pole numbered T61/E61 on the east side of Hayden Row Street at a point approximately 160 feet northerly from the center line of Chamberlain Street and approximately 4 feet north and 6 feet east of the pole's current location. And Hayden Row Street, relocate one jointly owned pole numbered T66/E66 on the east side of Hayden Row at a point approximately 405 feet southerly from the center line of Chamberlain Street and approximately 6 feet north and 8 feet east of the pole's current location. All construction shall be in accordance with the following conditions. Poles shall be of sound timber and reasonably straight and shall be set substantially at all points indicated in the plan, marked VZNE Inc. number 1A7AW9K, and a package dated March 31st, 2025, filed with the petition. Also, that permission is granted to each said companies to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as they may desire for distributing purposes.
Is there a second? I'll second that just to save that being spoken again. So we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Doesn't look like it. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That is unanimous and so carries. Perfect. Thank you for joining us, sticking around.
Thank you.
All right, so next we are on to the town manager's report. Ms. Lazarus?
All right. Just there's no real update this week on the Main Street Corridor project, other than Verizon is planning to move forward in removing the last overhead lines on the west side of the project, and then hopefully they'll be removing the old poles there. On the east side, cable continues to go underground. While Kyla is here, I'll jump to the town department position vacancy in the assessors. The deputy assessor will be leaving. And so the finance department has requested posting of that position, and in my memo is information about the position for your consideration.
Perfect. So we will look for, and just to remind everyone, this is something we started doing last year. This is any open vacancies, the board was just knowing the financial constraints for the town, just reviewing them, letting the town know what the positions are, and then we will look for a motion to post that deputy assessor position. But first, any questions for Elaine from the board? Mr. Herr?
All set.
Mr. Manon?
All set. We got to get quicker. It's revenue, right?
Yeah. Mr. Kisner?
So not on deputy assessor, but quickly because you opened for why we are reviewing this. So I will note that I did have extensive comments on this during our last session, and there is a future addenda item. I've continued to work on this in the background with Ms. Lazarus to begin acquiring data. I anticipate further discussions with our human resources director around town policies for vacancies and a further analysis and report back to the board.
Perfect. Thank you. Ms. Ritterbusch?
No questions.
All right, I am good as well. So I will look for that motion for posting of the deputy assessor position.
I move to authorize the posting of the deputy assessor position.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Ms. Lazarus, could you just quickly summarize the note you gave to the select board about the criticality of this position?
Well, this is an important position in determining and evaluating the property values in town, which factors into the tax rate and also reviews new construction.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed?
I'll abstain. I don't think this is necessary.
4-4, and Amy abstains. Okay, perfect. So next, we're moving on to the liaison reports. So,
One more thing before Kyla leaves, and on the town manager report, a couple of other items.
Please.
The W-2 issue that came up last week, so while Kyla is here, wanted to address that with the board. And so in my memo, I noted that, it was brought to our attention that deductions for vision and dental coverage weren't included in box 12 of the town's W-2s. And so this apparently has meant a delay potentially in employees receiving refunds with the IRS. Those W-2s were, town worked with their vendor to modify the W-2s. Those have been mailed out to the employees and uploaded to the IRS and the state at this point. So that has been addressed.
perfect. Yeah, and that's alluding to, there's been a lot of feedback from the town teachers on the delays from that. So we're aware of it, it's been corrected. I think we'll need to probably follow up in, the next meeting to give an update on where that's at, but thank you guys for bringing that to attention.
Sorry, through the chair. In your memo to us, you noted that we are no longer carrying service with the vendor. Can you clarify for the board, was this an error by a third party that has impacted town personnel, or was this an impact caused by town personnel that has cascaded to affect town personnel? It is not clear to me what caused this discrepancy for the second year in a row.
So this is the first year that this has come up. However, it seems as though this coding has been in place for at least a couple of years.
Yeah, the coding error has been in place for a number of years. It was just discovered this year that it was not pulling correctly to the W-2.
Okay, so through the chair and to Ms. Lazarus, we received public commentary that this was not the first year that there had been delays in refunds or W-2 issues. Can you please clarify whether or not this is a recurring issue?
So last year was not a W-2 issue, it was an IRS issue?
Correct. We cannot confirm that there is any linkage between the W-2 issue this year and the 941 issue last year, and any delays in the refunds. It's very inconsistent.
Yep. Yep, thank you. I felt the need to ask that question based on the volume and the tenor and frankly the criticality of the issue that the constituents are raising for us here. Pardon the lack of clarity for me, but we were talking about an error in code here. This is an error in code in a platform software that we were utilizing and not an error in code generated by a town employee?
The error in the code was input by a town employee that is no longer employed with the town.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
Just one quick comment. So going forward, how do you think, or are we putting in any process in place so it doesn't happen again, or if it happens, we catch the error before it goes out in mass?
So on the non-school side, so on the town side, we are moving to a new payroll vendor effective January 1st, and we are currently onboarding them. The school has decided to stick with the current vendor, so we will process 2 separate payrolls on 2 separate systems.
Thank you.
Can you just clarify what was the decision behind the town moving away from the current vendor?
We've had multiple issues over the last year that I've been here that have been discovered, and we do not find that this is the most efficient or accurate platform.
Okay, so as of January 1st, town hall, whole town, with the exception of the school's payroll department, will be moving away to the new vendor. School's payroll will remain with the same one. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Kyla. All right, so really one of our last topics. So the liaison reports.
Sorry, through the chair. Town council. We still have an item on the town manager report.
A couple of additional items on the town manager report still. The first being the town council services and an RFQ process. So this has been something on the board's future agenda items list for a while. And so the board had expressed interest in potentially soliciting proposals for new town council. So we've prepared an RFQ should you choose to move forward with that.
Perfect.
And it's an annual appointment by the select board and selection.
Any comments from the board?
Yes. I'd very much like to see us pursue an RFQ process and have a conversation around this. There has been a significant amount of, let's say, legal issues in the town, some of which are potentially traceable to our legal counsel. While I am not assigning or attributing fault, nor am I anxious to walk away from what I would consider to be job knowledge, I think we would be doing a disservice to not at least consider what the alternatives are given the services provided.
Perfect. Anything else? Elaine, anything else?
No.
Awesome. So we will move on to liaison reports.
You meant nothing new on that.
Sorry, it's not clear to me where that.
But is it the direction of the board then to move forward to issue the RFQ?
Do we need a motion for it?
Yes.
All right, so then we will look for a motion to move forward with the town council services and RFQ process. Can
I clarify the timeline? So what are our legal requirements to reappoint town council?
Pardon me?
When do we reappoint town council?
So it's an annual appointment, and our current council would continue to whenever that next appointment.
So we could just extend it. It won't just end if we don't okay. So we could go ahead and issue the RFQ then. Okay.
So would anyone like to make that motion?
I move to initiate the RFQ process to consider alternative town council services.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Do we need any discussion from the board? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, that is unanimous and carries.
And just one more, one more thing. So on July 3rd, town offices will be closed for the July 4th holiday. So the town offices will be closed July 3rd and 4th this year to express, our appreciation for town employees and all the hard work that they've done this year. It's very
We
much.
did last year too. Yeah. Thank you.
Perfect. Well deserved for the town. All right, so now we are moving on to the liaison assignments. So with the exception of Mr. Kisner, I think most everyone, re-elected their liaison assignments from the last year. I'm going to open this up. I'd like the board, each member to have I'm in it to talk. I'm open, if people, want to change things, I'm happy to swap with people if there's things that serve interest, but, we'll give everyone kind of a chance to talk, to speak about that now. So Mr. Herr, would you like to start?
I'm quite flexible about the various assignments and willing to sort of follow the rest of the board's lead. I would ask, though, that I stay with the Main Street Corridor project, as 2025 should be the end of the tunnel here for us, or the end of the work. So I'd like to keep that to keep the momentum going. But other than that, I'm wide open.
Okay. Mr. Manan?
Along the same line, I'm open. I want to keep a few. I would like to keep my current portfolio generally, but if there's any specific interest, I can talk about it. And I was wondering if I could also, I'm willing to give up the affordable housing. They've been great, and I've enjoyed working with them, just for a change. And I can also go for the marathon committee. Oh, I see that here, so I'm good with the current allocation that's there.
Okay, so as, you're good with as written, there's nothing
Correct.
different? Okay. Mr. Kisner?
I was going to say, through the chair, I'm the troublemaker, but I went through, and as long as the rest of the board doesn't have any quibbles with the 4 I've requested, I'm okay with the rest of the list. In the interest of time, I have requested Board of Assessors. I requested Public Library, Parks and Recreation, and DPW, and I don't believe I requested those from anyone. There are still some openings, but I'd like to start small. I will be transparent that some of the openings on the bigger committees, I'm a little leery about at the moment.
Okay, so right now, everything that we have in this packet, you're good with, and then was there an additional ask beyond that? I think we got that first part.
No, I may reassess on some of these openings, but I'd like to start with this and see what I can handle.
Okay. Mr. Bush?
So I think we really do need to each take, around 8-ish spots, because there's spots that are open, which is challenging, I know. And the most challenging ones, and I think we shouldn't have one person do them all, the ones that have to be a voting member of another committee. So would be good, those are on the last page, I think.
I didn't see totals under us individually, though, because I agree with you. That's kind of how we did it.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
I'm definitely light relative to everyone else. I put in for 4.
Okay, so
So like the Pratt master plan, that one kind of never meets, so you might as well just sign up for that one.
That's fine. You can put me down for that.
But the things that have voting members are open space preservation, affordable housing trust fund, MAPC, I've done that one, I'm happy to continue that, and Metro West Regional Transit Authority. And I don't know if you've noticed, they keep emailing us because Mary Jo was the liaison, and now they email all of us.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you remind me which one you just mentioned?
The Metro West Regional Transit Authority, it's on the last page. That is a daytime meeting one,
I
unfortunately.
was about to say, that's the reason I didn't, because I believe we said last time that's like an 11 a.m. meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could sign up for the MWRTA if that's needed.
Okay.
Do you want to toss something else my way then, Shahadul, just to balance it out? I'm not trying to take, just in the interest of fairness.
No, I appreciate that. I think I'm affordable housing, right? Is that?
I'll take affordable housing. I've made my bones on numbers.
No, that is a voting member, so you have to count for quorum.
It's a voting member, yeah.
How often do they meet?
That I don't know.
At least once a month sometimes.
Yeah, it seems to be, maybe once a month. It
Yeah.
seems to be a bit inconsistent.
You can put me down for now. If I find I'm unable to maintain the obligation, I'll circle back to the board.
Perfect.
Okay. So then we have Open Space Preservation Commission, that's also a voting member.
So I had that last year.
You have that last year,
So
okay.
I had that last year, and it was, I think it said through 26 as the term, so
Okay.
I was happy to see that out unless someone had a preference for it.
No, sorry.
It is a voting member one, so I will keep that unless someone would like it. Okay.
Chair, real quick, Elaine, does the MWRTA require a separate motion? I think the statute requires a CEO, meaning the chair, or his or her designee, in a separate motion
The
to
chair
meet that obligation.
Matt, did you say you do Pratt Farm?
Yep.
That never meets.
Yep. So I think I now have Pratt Farm and affordable housing in addition to what I already had on the list.
Okay. Just wondering if there's any other gaps, or did we fill them all now? Oh, the Keefe Tech School Committee? Does that have to be us, or we appoint someone else? It's on the first page, or I think,
No? I do go to meetings there, but not the school committee meetings.
is it a voting member, or?
No.
No, okay, so just a liaison.
I'll take tax relief as well, seeing that we have an opening there.
Oh, Council on Aging, does someone?
Theme of the day.
What's it?
Theme of the day.
Yeah.
I thought we disbanded the Hopkinton Schools Athletic Field Subcommittee with the completion of that project.
I don't know. Check on that.
Yeah.
So we should probably hold off on that one. Let's confirm that for next time.
It's open, so Regional School Committee, the Keefe Tech.
So, yep, it looks like Keefe Tech, Council on Aging, Marathon Funds, and
Joel said he would do that one, I think. Or no, Marathon Committee. Oh, you're right, Marathon Fund is open.
Marathon Funds open and MWRTA. I believe that is our open remaining.
MWRTA, I showed interest.
Yep.
Oh, Shai-Dul, would you?
Yeah, Shai-Dul, I put him down. He mentioned that a few minutes ago.
My apologies, I missed that.
So I think it's just the,
So Keefe Tech, Council on
Farm
Aging.
master plan.
I took Prep Farm,
You took Prep Farm, yeah.
so I think we're
so I
down.
think it's just the Marathon Fund Committee.
And Keefe
Council on
Tech.
Aging and Keefe Tech?
Yes.
Thought somebody mentioned they wanted the Marathon Fund Committee.
No, Shai-Dul wants the Marathon Committee, not the Fund Committee.
I'm happy to do the Marathon Fund Committee. I've done it in the past.
I'll take the VOC, that's fine. You officially got me to 8.
Okay, you're doing the Marathon.
All right,
I
excellent.
believe
Okay,
count.
got it. Yeah, yeah.
I haven't logged in.
Or
Yeah, okay.
Keefe Tech, they're-
7, 8, yep, I'm exactly 8 now.
Okay.
All right, so I think that covers them all.
Council on Aging?
Council on Aging's the last open.
Which page is that on? Oh, page 2.
It was one of Mary Jo's, I think.
Is that the last one? Is anyone short? Numbers?
Lance, you're only a 1, buddy.
Does that one have to be a select board member?
No.
Oh, we need tax relief committee.
I took it.
Oh, Matt's got that. So, wait, Council on Aging's the last one.
Yep.
It's during the day. Is that correct?
No.
There are meetings, but you're not required to go to meetings. It's just a liaison.
So you could just email the chair for an update or something. Whoever it is.
Anyone want to raise their hand?
I'm happy to do that if we need help, sure.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, so I think we're covered, but we needed a motion for the MWRTA. Is that correct?
And to vote the entire list also.
Okay. Or were they separate?
I would do them separately, yes.
Okay, I'll do make a motion to appoint Shahidul Manan as the Metro West Regional Transit Authority voting member for the Hopkinton Select Board. From the Hopkinton Select Board, excuse me.
Second, or do we have to say the length of the term, or?
No.
No, okay, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That is unanimous. So, Shai-Dul. And then now we need a motion to approve the full liaison list as we just worked on together. Pretty sure my copy has everyone filled out. So will anyone, I'll look for a motion to approve the liaison list for current year as discussed in this meeting and as we will share with Elaine, so we don't have to go through everyone. Is that
So
in order?
moved.
Second.
So we got a motion and a second by Ms. Ritterbusch. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? All right, that is unanimous and carries. So I think that brings us to, we're going into executive session. Before that, future board agenda items.
Also, board invites is under liaison. We just always do them together, but. I just want to acknowledge, we got invited to an Eagle Scout ceremony. I think Shidul said he could attend.
Next week. It's like Saturday morning.
Saturday is 10:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we're invited to the Pride Parade, and we even had a banner made up a couple of years ago. So I'm planning to go if anyone would like to go.
When's the date on that?
It is the 21st at the HC.
You have a time for that, Amy?
I do. Hold on just a second. It's 1 to 4 at the HCA.
4. All right. Thank you for bringing those up. Was there any other invites that we missed? I think we've had a couple of things the last few weeks. There was another Eagle Scout troop that Brian attended last week, but I think that covers it. With that, future board agenda items, I know I had a couple, but, Amy, would you like to start? Is there anything?
I don't think I have anything else that's not on the list. I can report back I went to the MAPC annual meeting in person, and it was a really good discussion with the Lieutenant Governor. They had a panel discussion with the Lieutenant Governor and the Consul General of Canada and the tariff issues that we're all facing. And I met some of the other select board members and chairs from other towns, and I'm going to try to get us moved into the subgroup that's together with Ashland, Southborough, and Holliston, because they'd put us in the subgroup more southerly with Milford. And I do feel like we have a lot more in common with the towns of similar school size from Ashland, Southborough, and Holliston. So I'm going to try to get us either in both of those groups or move to the other one, which I think will be a better fit. And it is really good to talk to other select board members because they're dealing with sort of the same concerns we are.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Kisner?
So I noted this when we were reviewing requisitions, but I do plan to be back on item number 11 sooner rather than later. And as we are on future topics, I will note that I will not be at the next meeting. I will be out of the country.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Manon? Mr. Herr?
Nothing to add at this time, thanks.
Okay, the two I wanted to add, so for our next meeting, we talked about setting the water rates tonight. We have to move forward with the water projects. We've talked about that. I think there was a meeting on the IMA in the last couple of weeks. But I think one of those next steps is, as part of the MWRA, we'll call it the application, we need to determine as a group the amount of water that's going to be requested. So I'd like, for the July 1st meeting to bring that up. We'll have, Ms. Reed is still in the back, so I'd like her to join us again with the Water Sewer Advisory Board, but we need to kind of push that forward. My understanding was that number doesn't need to be necessarily completely agreed on. It's going in the application. It will be discussed with the Water Resource Commission, so we just need to kind of finalize that and move it forward. And then I think we'd also like to come back. So we are going to go with the July 1st meeting, and then we're going to go meet again on August 5th, as noted in these last couple of meetings. For that one, I think we're going to, by then, we'll have, Mr. Gelsich has been doing a, land use survey, and we should have an analysis on how to overlay. Ms. Lazarus, we talked about this a little bit, where the water need is coming from. So I think, those two things in our next meeting will help move the water conversation forward, and hopefully we can start to pick up some momentum there. But otherwise, we discussed recircling on your town manager's report about the payroll issues, and I think that was everything. Okay, so with that, we will move on. We have to enter executive session, so I will look for a motion. The Select Board will consider convening an executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to consider strategy with respect to litigation. 1, Hopkinton CP LLC versus Town of Hopkinton, Middlesex Superior Court Number 2381 CV 01066, and 2, Stonewall along Assessor's Map Parcel R1627-0 between 61 and 65 Winter Street, because an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the litigating position of the board. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to consider strategy with respect to negotiations with the police, fire, DPW, and dispatch unions. C, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 2, to consider strategy with respect to negotiations with non-union personnel, the police chief and fire chief. And D, to approve executive session minutes. And also to let me just finish one sec. We also need to approve executive session minutes. Oh, nope, that's fine. I think we also need to authorize our attendees, right?
So yeah, in the script, there's
Yeah.
authorized people.
Yep, to allow Elaine Lazarus, Lance Del Priore, Brian Bertram, Anthony Riley, and Ed Harrow to participate in executive session.
Through the chair, for number E, I was wondering, do we need Mr. Anthony Riley and Ed Harrow for all the topics or just one topic?
Nope, so like Ed Harrow is there for the open space one,
Yeah.
61 and 65, so in executive session, we'll do that first. He can leave after.
Correct. I was just thinking in the motion, do we mention that?
And then not to convene an open session at the conclusion of the executive session also.
And to not convene an open session. So
moved.
thank you. So I have to read that again. There's a motion.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Roll call vote.
Oh, roll call.
Amy
Roll call.
Roderbush, yes?
Matthew Kisner, yes.
Shailen Manan, yes?
Brian Herr, yes?
Joe Clark, yes. All right, thank you, everyone, for hanging in there.